I stood frozen in my office, staring at the email that would destroy everything I'd spent 15 years building. The subject line was simple: design theft allegations. Immediate action required. My hands trembled as I scrolled through images of my upcoming collection's designs. Designs that had somehow been leaked to our biggest competitor 3 months before our planned launch. I'm Nancy, and until that moment I thought I had it all figured out. My fashion company, Phoenix Rising, had grown from a small boutique in San Francisco to a nationally recognized brand. My Vietnamese immigrant parents had sacrificed everything to give me an education, and I'd turned that opportunity into an empire. Now someone was trying to tear it all down. "Nancy!" Madison knocked on my door, her face pale. "You need to see this." She held up her tablet, showing me an Instagram post. There was Emma, my husband Clayton's newly discovered daughter, posing with our competitor's CEO. The caption read, "Exciting new partnership in the works. Can't wait to share more." "When was this posted?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. 20 minutes ago, right after the email arrived. The pieces clicked into place. Emma had appeared in our lives just 6 months ago, a 20-year-old art student claiming to be Clayton's daughter from a brief relationship before we met. I'd tried to be understanding, to welcome her into our family. Now I knew why she'd been so interested in touring our design studio. "Get legal on the phone," I told Madison, "and find Clayton." My phone buzzed, a text from my sister Bethany. "Did you see Emma's amazing news? So proud of her landing such a huge opportunity." My stomach churned. Of course Bethany would celebrate this. She'd been Emma's biggest champion since day one, constantly telling me how I needed to try harder to bond with my stepdaughter. I found Clayton in the company cafeteria, chatting with some of our designers. "We need to talk. Now." His easy smile faltered when he saw my expression. I led him to an empty conference room and showed him the email and Instagram post. "This has to be a misunderstanding," he said, running his hands through his graying hair. "Emma wouldn't what? Steal from me? Betray our trust? She's been here 6 months, Clayton. 6 months of access to everything while you insisted I make her feel welcome." "She's my daughter, Nancy. What was I supposed to do? Maybe mention her existence before she showed up at our door? Maybe check her story? Did you even get a DNA test?" His silence was damning. My phone buzzed again. My mother this time. "Nancy, why aren't you supporting Emma's new job? Family should celebrate each other's success." I laughed bitterly. "Your daughter," I told Clayton, "has managed to turn my entire family against me in less than 6 months, and now she's trying to destroy my company. Still want to defend her?" Before he could answer, Madison burst in. "Nancy, there's more. The design team just found their computers have been accessed. Files are missing, not just the current collection, but everything. Development plans, supplier contracts, everything." The room spun. I gripped the conference table for support. "I'll talk to her," Clayton said, reaching for his phone. "Don't bother." I straightened up, fury replacing shock. "I trusted you when you asked me to welcome her. I trusted you when you said she needed a chance. I even trusted you when you suggested giving her an internship here. But this ends now." I walked out, leaving him calling after me. In my office, I found Madison already working, her fingers flying over her keyboard. "I've started documenting everything," she said without looking up. "Access logs, missing files, the Instagram post, everything. We might need it for legal action." "Good." I sat down at my desk, mind racing. "We need to..." A notification popped up on my computer. Emma had just posted again. "So excited to announce I'm joining Stellar Fashion as their new creative director. Time to shake things up. Stellar Fashion, our biggest competitor, and the company that had just accused us of design theft. The same designs they'd somehow acquired." My hands clenched into fists. "Madison, cancel my meetings for the rest of the day. We need to figure out exactly what she took and how much damage she can do." As Madison left, I stared at the family photo on my desk, taken just last month at a dinner party. Everyone smiling, Emma in the center, my mother's arm around her shoulders, my sister beaming proudly, Clayton looking content. I picked up the frame and dropped it in my trash bin. They wanted to choose sides. Fine. But they had no idea what I was capable of when betrayed. Emma thought she'd stolen my life's work. I opened my laptop and began to plan. She was about to learn that karma has a way of coming back around, and I was going to help it along. The next morning I arrived at the office early to find Emma waiting by my door. She had the audacity to smile, as if nothing had happened. "Nancy, I was hoping to catch you. I wanted to explain about yesterday." "Save it." I unlocked my office door. "You have 30 minutes to clear out your desk and leave the building. Security is already notified." Her smile faltered. "You're making a huge mistake. I have connections now, influence. I could help Phoenix Rising if you'd just..." "Help? Like you helped yourself to our designs?" I turned to face her. "Like you helped yourself to confidential contracts? Get out." "Mom was right about you." Emma's sweet facade cracked. "You're just jealous because everyone loves me more than you now, even Clayton." Before I could respond, Madison appeared with 2 security guards. As they escorted Emma out, I heard her yelling, "You'll regret this! You have no idea what's coming!" My phone buzzed immediately after. It was Bethany. "How could you fire Emma?" she demanded. "She's family." "She stole from me, Bethany. She took our designs, our contracts." "Oh, please, she's 20. She's trying to build a career. You're just being paranoid and controlling, like always." I hung up. Within minutes, my mother called. "Emma is crying, Nancy. She says you accused her of terrible things." "Mum, I have proof. Proof? You need proof to trust family? I raised you better than this. That poor girl just wants to belong." I ended the call and turned to Madison. "What's the damage assessment?" She handed me a tablet. "It's worse than we thought. She didn't just take designs, she copied our entire supplier database. And look at this." She pulled up Emma's social media. There were photos of her at our main factory in Vietnam, posing with workers I'd known for years. The caption read, "Amazing meetings with talented artisans. Can't wait to work together on new projects." "She's going after our supply chain," I said, my blood running cold. "When were these taken?" "Last month, during that cultural heritage trip, Clayton encouraged her to take." A knock at my door made us both jump. Clayton entered, looking exhausted. "Nancy, we need to talk about Emma." "Unless you're here to tell me you've finally gotten that DNA test, I'm not interested." He sat down heavily. "She's my daughter. I know she is. Her mother Xerxes, she wouldn't lie about that." "The same Xerxes who disappeared for 20 years and suddenly sent her daughter to find you right when our company was taking off. It's not like that," he rubbed his face. "Emma just wants to prove herself. By stealing my work," I pulled up the factory photos. "By undermining our partnerships." He stared at the images. I didn't know about this." "Of course you didn't. You were too busy playing proud daddy to notice what she was really doing." Madison cleared her throat. "Nancy, there's something else you should see." She led us to Emma's former workspace. The desk had been cleared out, but Madison pointed to something stuck behind the drawer. It was a USB drive. Back in my office, we plugged it in. What we found made my heart stop. There were copies of our designs, but they weren't just copied. They were altered, dated months before our originals. "She's going to claim we stole from her," I whispered. "That's why she took that job at Stella. She's going to say we copied their designs." Clayton stood up. "I'll talk to her. This has gone too far." "Don't bother." I held up my hand. "You've done enough." After he left, Madison touched my arm. "What are we going to do?" I stared at the photos of Emma at our factory, her innocent smile now sinister. "We're going to set a trap. But first, I need you to do some digging. Find out everything you can about Emma and Xerxes. School records, work history, everything." "On it." Madison paused at the door. "What about your family? They've made their choice." I pulled up my calendar. "Now I'm making mine. Book me a flight to Vietnam. If Emma wants to play with our supply chain, she's about to learn who really controls it." That evening, as I packed for the trip, I found something in my closet that made my blood boil. Hidden behind my shoes was a notebook, Emma's notebook. Inside were detailed sketches of my upcoming collection, dated 3 months before I'd even started designing them. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Family dinner tonight. Emma will be there. Time to apologize and make things right." I photographed the notebook and sent it to Madison. Then I texted back, "Can't make it. Business trip. Tell Emma to enjoy my designs while she can." I closed my suitcase, my resolve hardening. Emma thought she'd orchestrated the perfect takedown, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd left a paper trail, and I was going to follow it all the way to the truth, no matter who got hurt in the process. The humidity hit me like a wall as I stepped out of Ho Chi Minh City's airport. My phone had been buzzing non-stop during the flight. Missed calls from Clayton, angry texts from Bethany, guilt-tripping voicemails from my mother. I ignored them all. My factory manager, Lynn, was waiting for me. Her usual warm smile was replaced with worry. "It's bad, Nancy. Very bad." "Show me." The drive to the factory was tense. Lynn filled me in. 3 days ago, Emma returned with representatives from Stella. They offered our workers triple their current wages to switch companies. My stomach dropped. How many took the offer? Half the senior team, including your head seamstress. Mai had been with me since the beginning. She'd taught me everything about production quality. Her betrayal stung worse than the others. At the factory, the remaining workers wouldn't meet my eyes. I found Mai's workstation empty, her 20 years of experience gone in an instant. "Nancy," Madison's voice came through my earpiece. "I found something about Emma's mother, Xerxes. She used to work for Stella Fashion 15 years ago." "What position?" "Legal department. And here's the interesting part. She handled their corporate espionage cases." I gripped the empty workbench. So this wasn't just about revenge. It was planned from the start. There's more. Emma's been posting about a major announcement. Stella is launching a new collection next week, 3 months ahead of schedule. My collection, my designs, my life's work. My phone buzzed again. Bethany. This time I answered. "What?" "Mom's in the hospital," she said. "She had a panic attack worrying about you and Emma fighting. Are you happy now?" I closed my eyes. "Is she okay?" "No thanks to you. Emma's been by her side the whole time while you're off on some vindictive business trip. Emma is the reason—" "Save it. Just come home and fix this mess you've created." She hung up. I turned to Lynn, who was watching me with sympathy. "What do we do?" she asked. "We fight back." I pulled out my tablet. "Show me everyone who's still loyal." We spent the next hours reorganizing teams, but the damage was deep. Without our senior seamstresses, quality would suffer. Production would slow. My phone lit up with a news alert. Stella Fashion announces groundbreaking collection. Rising star Emma Knight to lead design team. Below was a photo of Emma in my old factory, surrounded by my former workers. The caption read, "Bringing ethical manufacturing and authentic Asian craftsmanship to luxury fashion." I threw my phone across the room. "Nancy?" Madison's voice crackled through my earpiece again. "Clayton's here at the office. He says he needs to tell you something important about Emma." "Put him on." Clayton's voice was strained. "Nancy, I did something stupid. When Emma first came, I gave her access to your personal files. She said she wanted to learn from you, to understand your journey." My vision blurred with rage. "You what?" "She said she felt disconnected from her Asian heritage. That studying your story would help her connect. I thought I was helping her understand her culture." I laughed bitterly. "Her culture? Clayton, she's not even Asian. Did you forget that part?" "I know, I wanted to help her belong." "Well, congratulations. She belonged just long enough to destroy everything I built." I ended the call and turned to Lynn. "Get me Mai's phone number." Mai answered on the first ring. "Nancy, Save the excuses. I want you to deliver a message to Emma. Tell her I know about Xerxes. Tell her I know this was planned from the start. And tell her to enjoy her moment in the spotlight, because it won't last long. Nancy, please. She showed us proof that you stole designs. Said you've been exploiting Vietnamese workers for years. We believed. You believed what you wanted to believe. After 20 years, you believed a stranger over me." I hung up and turned to Lynn. Book me on the next flight home. It's time to end this. As I packed up, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Emma, Clayton, Bethany, and my mother at the hospital, all smiling. The message read, "Family dinner tonight. Shame you're too busy destroying relationships to attend. But don't worry. I'll take good care of them for you." Madison's voice came through again. "Nancy, Stella just announced their launch date. It's the same day as our annual charity fashion show." Of course it was. Emma wasn't just stealing my designs. She was trying to steal my moment, my audience, my reputation. I stared at the family photo again, at their smiling faces, at the way they clustered around Emma like she was the daughter I'd failed to be. Fine. If Emma wanted to play with fashion shows, I'd give her one she'd never forget. Madison, don't change anything about our show plans. In fact, send Emma a VIP invitation, front row. Are you sure? I smiled grimly. Absolutely. It's time everyone saw who Emma really is, and this time I'll make sure they're all watching. Back in San Francisco, I walked into my office to find Madison waiting with a thick folder and a concerned expression. "You need to see this," she said, spreading documents across my desk. "Emma's story doesn't add up. Her college transcripts? Fake. Her previous work experience? Fabricated. Even her birth certificate looks suspicious." I picked up a photo of a younger Emma with a woman who wasn't Xerxes. "Who's this?" That's where it gets interesting. I found this on a private Instagram account. The caption calls her Mom, but it's not Xerxes. My phone buzzed. Another hospital update from Bethany. "Mom's being discharged. Emma's arranged a welcome home dinner. Last chance to fix things, Nancy." I ignored it and turned back to Madison. "What else?" "Stella Fashion stock has jumped 30% since announcing Emma's collection. But here's the weird part. Someone bought massive amounts of shares 3 months ago, right when Emma first showed up." "Clayton," I whispered. "Check his accounts," Madison typed frantically. "Oh God, Nancy. He sold his shares in Phoenix Rising, all of them. The same week Emma arrived. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. My own husband had bet against me, against everything we'd built together. A knock at my door made us both jump. It was Clayton. "We need to talk," he said. "About how you sold me out? Or about how you helped Emma destroy everything I built?" He closed the door. "It's not what you think. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me?" I laughed. "By investing in our biggest competitor? By helping your fake daughter steal my designs?" "Fake?" He paled. "What do you mean, fake?" I threw the documents at him. "Everything about her is a lie, Clayton, and you were too busy playing proud father to even check." He slumped into a chair, staring at the evidence. "But Xerxes, she wouldn't lie about this." "Xerxes?" I pulled up the photo Madison found. "You mean this woman? Because that's Emma's real mother, and it's not Xerxes." His hands shook as he examined the photo. "I don't understand. Why would they—" "Money," Madison said flatly. "Stella's stock is soaring. Someone's making millions off this scheme." My phone buzzed again, this time from my mother. "Emma's making your favourite pho for dinner. Please come home. Family needs to stick together." I turned to Clayton. "Did you know about the shares, the stolen designs, all of it?" "Not everything," he whispered. "Xerxes contacted me 6 months ago. Said Emma was mine, that she needed family. Then she mentioned Stella's interest in our designs. Suggested we could profit from it. I thought we could make everyone happy." "Everyone except me." I stood up. "Get out. And don't come back." After he left, Madison touched my arm. "What's our next move?" I pulled up the charity fashion show plans on my computer. "We're going to give them exactly what they want, but with a twist. Call our video team. I need every screen at that show ready to display evidence." "Evidence of what?" "Everything. Emma's lies, Clayton's betrayal, Stella's fraud. If they want to steal my spotlight, I'll make sure everyone sees who they really are." My phone rang. An unknown number. The voice was familiar. "Nancy, it's Mai. We need to talk." "About how you betrayed me? About how Emma betrayed us all? She's not paying what she promised. She's cutting corners, rushing production. Workers are getting hurt. I sat up straighter. Tell me everything. As Mai spoke, pieces clicked into place. Emma wasn't just stealing designs. She was exploiting workers, endangering lives, all for a quick profit. Send me proof, I said. Photos, videos, everything. Already done, check your email. I opened the files with Madison. The evidence was damning. Unsafe conditions, unpaid wages, child labour violations. This is it, I said. This is how we stop them. Madison nodded. The fashion show's in 3 days. If we time this right, we'll destroy their reputation right as they try to steal mine. I picked up my phone and finally replied to my mother's text. I'll be at dinner tonight. Are you sure? Madison asked. It could be a trap. Oh, it definitely is. I smiled grimly. But Emma's not the only one who can play family politics. Time to give her a taste of her own medicine. I gathered my things, including a USB drive containing Mai's evidence. Have the video team ready tomorrow. And Madison? Send an anonymous tip to fashion bloggers about Stella's big announcement. Make sure everyone's watching. As I headed out, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from Emma. Looking forward to seeing you at dinner, stepmom. Hope you're ready to apologize. I clutched the USB drive tighter. Emma thought she was orchestrating my downfall, but she'd forgotten one crucial detail. I'd built my empire from nothing once before. I could do it again, right after I burned hers to the ground. The aroma of pho filled my mother's house, but the familiar comfort was tainted by tension. Emma stood at the stove playing the perfect daughter, while my mother beamed at her from the kitchen table. Nancy, you came. Mum's smile faltered when she saw my expression. Please sit. Emma made your favourite. Actually, Emma said, stirring the pot, it's my grandmother's secret recipe. Really? I set my bag down. Which grandmother would that be? The Vietnamese one you don't have, or the fake one you've been lying about? The ladle clattered against the pot. Bethany, who'd been setting the table, froze. Nancy, Mom scolded. How dare you? Show them, I said to Emma. Show them your real birth certificate. Tell them about your real mother, the one in that Instagram photo from 3 years ago. Emma's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. No? Then explain this. I pulled out my phone, displaying the photo Madison found. That's you at 16 with your actual mother. Not Xerxes, not Vietnamese, just another con artist. Emma? My mother's voice wavered. What is she talking about? She's lying. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She's just jealous because everyone loves me more than her, because I'm more successful. Successful? I laughed. You mean stealing my designs? Exploiting my workers? Here's what real success looks like. I pulled out my tablet and played Mai's video. The footage showed unsafe working conditions, workers being forced to meet impossible quotas, even children sewing in dark corners. This is what Emma's doing with my stolen designs. This is her ethical manufacturing. Bethany stepped closer to watch, her hand covering her mouth. Emma, tell me this isn't true. It's not what it looks like, Emma stammered. Those workers chose to come with me. I'm paying them better. Are you? I pulled up payment records. Because according to this, you haven't paid them in weeks. They're trapped, Emma. Just like you trapped my family with your lies. My mother stood up slowly, her face ashen. All this time, you've been lying to us? No, I mean, I had to. Clayton abandoned me and my mom. We deserved compensation. Clayton was never your father, was he? I pressed. This was all a scam. You and Xerxes planned this from the start. The front door opened. Clayton walked in, his face grim. Actually, Xerxes planned it without Emma knowing the whole truth. Emma spun around. Dad, don't. I'm not your dad, Emma. And I think you've known that for a while. Tears streamed down Emma's face. She promised me. She said if I helped her, we'd be rich, that you owed us. Who promised? My mother demanded. Xerxes? Xerxes isn't even her real name, Clayton said. She's a corporate spy who's been targeting fashion companies for years. She found Emma, convinced her I was her father, and used her to infiltrate Phoenix Rising. And you knew? I stepped toward him. You knew and still helped them? I found out last week. After you showed me the evidence, I hired a private investigator. He pulled out a folder. Xerxes approached Emma 6 months ago, showed her fake DNA results, promised her revenge against the father who abandoned her. Emma believed her because she wanted it to be true. Emma sank into a chair, sobbing. I just wanted a family, a real family. And then when I saw how easily they all loved me, she gestured to my mother and Bethany. It felt so good to be wanted. So you decided to destroy my life, I asked. Steal my work? Turn my family against me? I didn't mean for it to go this far, but Xerxes kept pushing, saying we deserved more, and then the money started coming in. My phone buzzed. Madison. Stella's stock is crashing. Someone leaked the factory footage online. I showed Emma the message. Your empire's falling, and Xerxes is probably already gone with the money. Still feel wanted? Emma buried her face in her hands. My mother moved to comfort her, then stopped, torn between instinct and betrayal. The fashion show is in 2 days, I said. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to publicly admit everything, the fraud, the theft, all of it. You're going to make it right with those workers, and then you're going to disappear. Or what? Or I release everything, the fake documents, the stock fraud evidence, your role in worker exploitation. Your choice. Bethany stepped forward. Nancy, maybe… No, Emma interrupted. She's right. I'll do it. She looked up, her makeup streaked with tears. I really did admire you, you know. Your success, your strength. I just wanted to be part of it. You could have been, I said, if you'd just been honest. My mother finally spoke, her voice thick with emotion. All this time I blamed Nancy for not accepting you, but you were playing us all. Emma stood up shakily. I'll go pack my things. As she left, Clayton turned to me. Nancy, I'm so sorry. I should have… Save it, I cut him off. We'll deal with you later. I checked my phone again. The fashion blogs were exploding with speculation about Stella's stock crash. In 2 days, they'd have their answers. And Emma would learn that real success comes from building things up, not tearing them down. The day before the fashion show, I arrived at the venue to find Madison in a panic. Emma's gone, she said, rushing to meet me. No one's seen her since last night, and Stella's PR team is in chaos. What about Xerxes? Vanished. Her bank accounts were emptied yesterday morning. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Clayton, a text from my mother asking if I'd heard from Emma, and an email from Mai. Workers are scared. Stella representatives threatening legal action if we speak out. They're desperate, I said. They know what's coming. The venue was buzzing with activity as crews set up screens and lighting. My original plan had been to expose Emma during the show, but her disappearance changed everything. Madison's phone rang. It's Clayton. He says it's urgent. I took the call. What? Emma's at my apartment, he said, voice tense. She has documents, Nancy, real ones, about Xerxes and Stella. You need to see this. 20 minutes later, I walked into Clayton's apartment to find Emma sitting on the couch, clutching a laptop. She looked terrible, like she hadn't slept in days. Show her, Clayton said. Emma opened the laptop. Xerxes isn't just a corporate spy. She's running a huge fashion counterfeiting operation. These designs she had me steal, they're being mass-produced in illegal factories right now. She pulled up photos, spreadsheets, emails. She played me just like she played everyone else. Once I realized what was really happening, I started gathering evidence. Why should I believe you? Because she tried to kill me last night. Emma pulled back her sleeve, revealing dark bruises. When I confronted her about the illegal factories, she sent someone to warn me. My phone buzzed. Madison sending updates about the show preparations. I ignored it. That's not all, Emma continued. Look at this email chain. Stella's CEO knew everything. They're not just stealing designs, they're using forced labor, money laundering, everything. I scrolled through the emails. Why are you showing me this? Because I was wrong, Emma whispered. About everything. I wanted a family so badly that I let Xerxes convince me you were the villain. But you built something real, something honest. I destroyed that for a lie. Clayton stepped forward. Nancy, this goes way beyond corporate espionage. These people are dangerous. They're also going to be at the fashion show tomorrow, I said, along with every major fashion journalist in the country. Emma sat up straighter. I'll testify. Tell everyone everything, but what? But I need your help. Xerxes has connections everywhere. If I do this alone, I'm dead. My phone rang. My mother. Nancy, there are strange men watching the house. They're asking about Emma. My blood ran cold. Mom, lock the doors. Call the police. We're coming to get you. As we rushed to my mother's house, Emma explained more. Xerxes has been running this scheme for years. Find struggling fashion companies, infiltrate them, steal their designs. But this time she got greedy. The Stella deal was too big. We pulled up to see two men in dark suits walking away from my mother's house. Bethany's car was in the driveway. Inside we found Mom and Bethany huddled in the kitchen. They said they were investors looking for Emma, Bethany said, shaking. But they felt wrong. We need to move fast, I said. Madison, are you listening? Always, her voice came through my earpiece. What do you need? Call every fashion blogger who's attending tomorrow. Tell them something big is going down. Then call our security team. I want the venue locked down tight. Emma pulled out her laptop again. I can prove Stella knew about the illegal factories, about Xerxes, everything. Good. I turned to Clayton. Call your lawyer friend at the FBI. This just became federal. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Back off, or your family suffers. X. I showed it to Emma. Still want to make things right? She nodded, face determined. I helped create this mess. I'll help fix it. Nancy, my mother said softly. What can we do? I looked at my family, real and fake, broken and healing. We're going to set a trap, but this time we're all in it together. Madison's voice crackled through. Nancy, Stella just announced they're attending the show tomorrow. Their whole board will be there. Perfect, I smiled grimly. They think they're coming to watch their triumph. Instead, they're walking into their own takedown. Emma opened her evidence files. Where do we start? With the truth, I said. All of it. No more lies, no more games. Tomorrow, everyone sees exactly who they're dealing with. As we worked through the night, preparing statements and organizing evidence, I watched Emma. She wasn't the daughter Clayton thought he had, or the sister my family wanted. But maybe, just maybe, she could be something else. An ally in exposing a truth bigger than all of us. My phone buzzed one final time. Another threat from Xerxes. I deleted it without reading. Tomorrow would be about more than revenge. It would be about justice. The fashion show venue hummed with anticipation. Every seat was filled, photographers lined the runway, and FBI agents disguised as security personnel positioned themselves strategically around the room. Stella's board just arrived, Madison whispered through my earpiece. Front row as requested. I stood backstage watching the monitors. Emma was hidden in the control room with our tech team, ready to launch the evidence at my signal. My mother and Bethany sat in the audience, their faces tense but determined. Nancy, Clayton approached, keeping his voice low. Xerxes is here. I spotted her, elegant, poised, and completely unaware that her empire was about to crumble. She sat next to Stella's CEO, both of them smiling like they'd already won. Places, everyone, I announced. It's showtime. The lights dimmed. I stepped onto the runway and the crowd fell silent. Welcome to Phoenix Rising's annual charity fashion show, I began. Tonight's theme is truth and transformation. But before we begin, I have a special presentation. I nodded to the control room. The screens flickered to life, showing Emma's face. My name is Emma Knight, she said, her voice strong despite her fear. And I'm here to confess to corporate espionage, fraud, and participation in illegal labor practices. Gasps rippled through the audience. Xerxes stood up, but FBI agents were already moving to block the exits. Everything you're about to see is true, Emma continued. The screens filled with evidence, emails, photos, financial records. Xerxes recruited me to infiltrate Phoenix Rising using a fake DNA test to convince me Clayton Morgan was my father. The crowd erupted in whispers. I watched Xerxes' face contort with rage. But that was just the beginning, Emma said. The real scheme was much bigger. The screens showed footage from the illegal factories, workers crammed into dangerous conditions, children working late into the night. Then came the financial records, money laundering, bribes, all traced back to Stella's executives. Lies! Xerxes shouted, standing up, and this is all fabricated. Is it? I pulled out my phone and played a recording, Xerxes' voice clearly discussing the scheme with Stella's CEO. Your own words, recorded last night when Emma confronted you. FBI agents moved in, surrounding Xerxes and the Stella board members. The audience watched in shocked silence as handcuffs clicked into place. This is what real fashion looks like, I gestured to the screens, now showing Phoenix Rising's ethical factories, fair wages, safe conditions. Not theft, not exploitation, creation, innovation, respect. Journalists were frantically typing on their phones. Photographers' cameras clicked rapidly. This wasn't just a fashion show anymore, it was breaking news. You'll regret this, Xerxes snarled as she was led away. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Actually, Emma stepped out from backstage, we do, and we have proof of everything. The fashion show proceeded as planned. But now each design told a story, not just of style, but of integrity. The models walked the runway while the screens showed the real artisans who created each piece, their working conditions, their fair wages. Halfway through, Madison's voice crackled in my ear. Stella's stock has completely collapsed. The board members are being arrested. We did it. I caught my mother's eye in the audience. She was crying, but this time they were tears of pride. Bethany reached over and squeezed her hand. After the final walk, I stepped out again. Fashion isn't just about clothes. It's about people. Every stitch, every seam represents someone's work, someone's dignity. Tonight, we've shown you the truth behind the glamour. Now, I'd like to announce a new initiative. Emma joined me on stage. Phoenix Rising will be establishing a fund for victims of fashion industry exploitation. Every worker affected by Stella's illegal practices will receive compensation and job training. The audience erupted in applause. Journalists shouted questions, but I held up my hand. One more thing, I said. To Emma Knight, who chose truth over profit, justice over revenge, thank you for your courage. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. For everything. I know, I replied quietly. Now help me make it right. As we left the stage, my phone buzzed with messages from around the world. The story was going viral. Fashion justice was trending, but the message that mattered most was from workers celebrating here. You did it, Nancy. You protected us all. Clayton met us backstage. The FBI wants statements from everyone tomorrow. This case is going to be huge. Good, I said. The fashion industry needs this wake-up call. My mother and Bethany pushed through the crowd to reach us. Without a word, Mom pulled both me and Emma into a hug. My girls, she whispered, both so strong in different ways. Emma stiffened, then relaxed. I'm not really your... Family isn't just blood, Mum said firmly. It's choice. It's doing the right thing even when it's hard. I looked at Emma. No longer an enemy. Not quite family, but something new. Something honest. Ready to build something real this time? I asked her. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Ready. The venue slowly emptied, but the night's impact was just beginning. Sometimes, I realized, the best revenge isn't destruction, it's transformation. The morning sun streamed through my office windows as I reviewed the final settlement papers. Stella's executives had pleaded guilty, Xerxes was facing federal charges, and the fashion industry was undergoing a massive ethics overhaul. Madison knocked on my door. The workers are ready for the video call. I opened my laptop to see Mai's familiar face on the screen, surrounded by our Vietnamese team. The factory behind them hummed with activity. Production is back on schedule, Mai reported, and the new training program is working well. Emma leaned into frame from beside me. How are the safety improvements coming along? Perfect. Your redesigns for the workspace made a huge difference. After the fashion show, Emma had surprised everyone by volunteering to work directly with the factory workers, using her design skills to improve their working conditions rather than exploit them. My phone buzzed. Clayton's lawyer finalizing our divorce terms. I'd given him a choice: fight me in court or help make things right. He'd chosen the latter, using his connections to expose more industry corruption. Nancy, Madison pointed to the TV. Breaking news showed Xerxes being led into court. Turn it up, I said. The reporter's voice filled the office. Fashion industry whistleblowers have uncovered similar schemes in Paris and Milan. Experts are calling this the biggest fashion industry scandal in decades. They're still finding more illegal factories, Emma said quietly, some worse than what we exposed. That's why our next collection is so important. I pulled up the designs we'd been working on. Every piece tells a story of ethical production. Real artisans, real craftsmanship. The office door opened and my mother walked in carrying bags of takeout. Family lunch meeting. Bethany followed with drinks. Since the fashion show, our weekly family lunches had become non-negotiable. Mom's way of keeping us connected through all the changes. Before we eat, Emma said, I have something to show you. She pulled out her laptop and opened a website. I've been working with former Stella workers to create this platform. It lets customers trace exactly who made their clothes, under what conditions, and for what pay. Transparency tracking? Madison leaned in. That's brilliant. It was Nancy's idea, Emma said. I just built on it. My mother set out the food. See? This is what happens when we work together instead of against each other. Speaking of working together, I turned back to the video call. Mai, are you ready to announce your promotion? Mai beamed. The workers voted unanimously. I'm officially production director for all Asian operations. Bethany raised her drink. To Mai! As we celebrated, I noticed Emma looking at her phone, her expression troubled. Everything okay? My real mum called. She wants to meet. The room fell silent. Emma hadn't spoken to her biological mother since the truth about Xerxes came out. What are you going to do? I asked. I thought, maybe you could come with me? You're better at spotting lies than I am. My mother reached over and squeezed Emma's hand. We'll all go. Family supports family. Even fake family, Emma tried to joke, but her voice wavered. Especially family that chooses to be better, Bethany said firmly. Madison cleared her throat. Nancy, the press is here for the interview about the Workers' Rights Initiative. Send them in, I turned to Emma. Ready to show them what real fashion leadership looks like? She straightened her shoulders. Ready. The reporters filed in, cameras rolling. They captured not just a story of corporate scandal, but one of transformation. Workers speaking proudly about their improved conditions, Emma demonstrating the transparency platform, Mai discussing her new role. Ms. Nancy, one reporter asked, what made you decide to expose the scandal instead of quietly handling it internally? I looked around the room, at Mai on the screen, at Madison's proud smile, at my family's supportive faces, at Emma's determined expression. Because real change doesn't happen in silence, I said. Sometimes you have to break things down completely to rebuild them properly. And Ms. Emma, another reporter turned to her. After everything that happened, why stay in the fashion industry? Emma met my eyes before answering. Because I learned that success isn't about destroying others to get ahead. It's about lifting people up with you. After the reporters left, I found a small package on my desk. Inside was a framed photo of my parents from when they first arrived in America, along with a note from my mother. They would be so proud of who you've become. Not just successful, but righteous. I hung the photo where I could see it every day. A reminder that true legacy isn't measured in profits or revenge, but in the lives we touch and the changes we inspire. Emma knocked on my door. The workers have a new design proposal. Want to see? I smiled. Let's build something beautiful.
My name is Ashley, and at 32, I've spent the last decade building my career as a manager at Preston and Associates. While my younger sisters Sarah and Emma were busy starting their families, I was climbing the corporate ladder. Don't get me wrong, I love my job, but sometimes I wonder if I missed out on something along the way. No husband, no kids, just me and my corner office with a view of the city. It was a regular Tuesday morning when my phone rang. Sarah's name flashed across the screen, and I answered while sorting through a stack of reports on my desk. "Hey Ash," Sarah's voice chirped through the speaker. At 26, my youngest sister had always been the bubbly one. "Got a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" I shuffled some papers aside, half listening as I reviewed quarterly numbers. "So, you know Mom's turning 60 in 2 months, right?" She paused for effect. "Well, we're planning something special, and we need everyone to chip in." That got my attention. "Okay, how much are we talking about?" When Sarah named the figure, I nearly choked on my coffee. It was more than I'd spent on my last vacation, which, come to think of it, was 3 years ago. "I know it's a lot," Sarah rushed to add, "but it's for Mom, you know?" No, it's fine," I said, already pulling up my banking app. "I'll transfer it right now." "Great. Oh, and one more thing, make sure you take a week off work for the celebration. Don't plan anything else for that time, okay?" The next few weeks flew by in a blur of meetings and deadlines. I'd occasionally wonder what my sisters were planning with all that money, but whenever I asked, they'd brush me off with vague responses. Eventually, work took over, and Mom's birthday slipped to the back of my mind. Then came the Saturday dinner. We all gathered at our parents' house, Mom and Dad, my sisters, Aunt Susan and her kids, my cousins Michael and Rachel. The familiar chaos of family dinner surrounded us, Dad telling his same old jokes, Mom fussing over everyone's plates, the usual stuff. That's when Sarah dropped her bomb. "So," she said, pushing her peas around her plate with calculated casualness, "we've finally got everything arranged for Mom's birthday. We're all going to spend a week at Mountain Pine Resort." The table erupted in excited chatter. Mom was beaming, Dad was already talking about hitting the slopes, and my sisters were discussing which ski runs they wanted to try. "Why didn't anyone tell me earlier?" I asked, feeling a bit left out. "I don't even have a ski suit, and there's barely any time to get one now." The table got quiet. Too quiet. Mom cleared her throat, and I felt my stomach drop before she even opened her mouth. "Actually, honey," she said, with that tone she used when she was about to ask for a favor she knew I couldn't refuse, "we were hoping you could do us all a huge favor and watch the kids while we're there." I stared at my family gathered around the dinner table, waiting for someone to laugh, to say it was all a joke. But the silence stretched on, broken only by the soft clink of silverware against plates. "You want me to watch the kids?" I finally managed to say. "All 5 of them?" My mind started counting them off automatically, Emma's toddler Jason, Sarah's baby girl Lucy, cousin Michael's twins Tom and Anna, and Rachel's son Pete. 5 kids under the age of 7. "Well, you're so good with them," Mom said, as if that explained everything. "They love their Aunt Ashley." I looked around the table again, still hoping to see a hint of humor in someone's eyes. There was none. Just expectant faces waiting for my usual yes. "But, that's not fair," I heard myself say, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "I want to celebrate with everyone too. It's Mom's birthday." Emma, my 28-year-old sister, put down her fork with a sigh. "Come on, Ashley. You'll be bored there anyway. It's going to be noisy and crowded." "Bored?" I repeated. "How would you know if I'd be bored?" "Well," she continued, exchanging glances with Sarah, "you're great with the kids. They adore you. And let's be honest, it's not like you need a break from family life." I felt my chest tighten. "What's that supposed to mean?" Sarah jumped in, her voice carrying that condescending tone she'd perfected over the years. "She just means that you don't have children or a husband to get away from. The rest of us, we need this break. You understand, right?" The green beans on my plate blurred as I blinked back tears. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Instead, I quietly pushed back my chair and stood up. "Ashley?" Mom's voice held a note of concern, but not enough to actually stop me. Without a word, I grabbed my purse from the counter and headed for the door. Nobody moved to stop me. Nobody called out. The only sound that followed me was Mom's voice, drifting from the dining room. "Don't worry, she'll be a little offended at first, but she'll come around. She always does." As I walked to my car, their voices faded behind me, already moving on to discussing ski slopes and winter gear. The evening air was crisp against my face, helping to clear my head. 10 years of putting everyone else first, of being the responsible one, the reliable one, and this is what I got in return. The worst part wasn't even the babysitting request, it was the casualness with which they'd assumed I'd agree. The way they'd planned this whole thing without me, using my money, my time, my vacation days, without even asking. As if I was just a resource to be used, not a member of the family to be included. I spent half the night pacing around my apartment, replaying every family dinner, every holiday, every moment when I'd dropped everything to help someone else. The memories came flooding back, each one taking on a new, darker meaning in light of tonight's events. There I was at 16, making dinner while Mom helped Emma with her homework. Me at 18, turning down a spring break trip with friends to watch Sarah while our parents took a weekend getaway. At 21, working 2 jobs during college to help pay for Emma's prom dress. The images kept coming, year after year, sacrifice after sacrifice. "Ashley, can you watch Jason for a few hours?" Emma's voice echoed in my head. "I really need a break." "Ashley, would you mind taking the twins for the weekend?" Michael's familiar request played back like a broken record. "Rachel's overwhelmed with Pete, and you're so good with kids." I'd always said yes. Always. Even when I had important meetings the next day, even when I was exhausted from my own work week. I'd taken pride in being the reliable one, the responsible sister, the perfect daughter. I collapsed onto my couch, the leather cool against my skin. The photo albums on my coffee table caught my eye, family vacations where I was always the one behind the camera, holiday gatherings where I was always in the kitchen while everyone else laughed in the living room. When was the last time someone had asked me what I wanted? "It's not like you need a break from family life." Sarah's words kept echoing in my head. As if my life, my career, my choices were somehow less valid because I wasn't married with children. As if all my sacrifices meant nothing because they didn't fit their definition of what mattered. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I tossed and turned, remembering how I'd worked through college on a scholarship, determined not to burden my parents financially. How I'd started my career immediately after graduation, helping to put both my sisters through school. All those late nights at the office, climbing the corporate ladder, sending chunks of my salary home to help with family expenses. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't a confrontational person, never had been. There had to be a way to resolve this peacefully, to make them understand without causing a family rift. So I did what I'd always done when there was a problem, I tried to fix it. I waited until a reasonable hour on Sunday morning before picking up my phone. Mom answered on the 3rd ring. "Hi, Mom," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I've been thinking about the resort trip. Actually, I have a solution. I'll pay for a professional babysitter for all 5 kids. That way, everyone can enjoy the celebration together." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for a moment too long. "That won't work, Ashley," Mom finally said, her voice tight. "We can't trust some stranger with the children. They're used to you." "Mom, I want to be part of the celebration too," I tried to explain. "I want to be there for your birthday. I could find a really good babysitter, someone with excellent references." "You know you're not exactly a social butterfly," she cut me off, her voice sharp. "You'd probably be uncomfortable with all the noise and activity anyway. The children will keep you busy, and you enjoy spending time with them. It's perfect for everyone." The click of the call ending echoed in my ear before I could respond. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, as my mother's words sank in. She hadn't even bothered to say goodbye. I was still staring at my phone, processing my mother's abrupt hang-up, when it buzzed again. Sarah's name flashed across the screen. "How dare you," she hissed, before I could even say hello. "Mom just told me about your little suggestion about hiring a babysitter. Are you trying to ruin everything?" I sat up straighter, my sister's hostile tone catching me off guard. "Ruin everything? I'm trying to find a solution that works for everyone." "We already have a solution." Sarah's voice rose. "Everything's planned, Ashley. Everything. And now you're being completely selfish, trying to change all our arrangements at the last minute." The accusation hit me like a slap. "I'm being selfish?" "Yes, you are. We've been planning this for weeks. Everyone's excited. The resort is booked, the activities are scheduled, and now you want to throw a wrench in everything because you can't just do this one thing for the family?" My hand started shaking. "One thing? Are you serious?" "You know what? If you ruin this trip for everyone, if you spoil Mom's birthday celebration, don't bother talking to me again." "I mean it, Ashley." The line went dead. I sat there, stunned by my baby sister's threat, when my phone buzzed with incoming messages. This time from Emma. "Family needs to stick together," her first text read. "We all help each other out." Another message popped up. "Remember when I watered your flowers last year while you were at that conference?" And another, "You're good with the kids. They love you. Why can't you just forget about being resentful and think about what's best for the family?" My fingers flew across the keyboard as I replied, "A real family doesn't take advantage of each other. A real family respects each other's wishes and includes everyone in their plans. A real family doesn't manipulate and guilt-trip each other." I watched the three dots appear and disappear several times, but no response came. That's when it hit me. The way they'd asked for money without explaining what it was for. The careful way they'd told me to take time off work without mentioning the resort. The casual way they'd announced their plans at dinner, as if everything was already set in stone. They'd planned this all along. While I was working late nights, while I was babysitting their kids, while I was being the perfect daughter and sister, they were secretly arranging this trip. They'd used my money, arranged my schedule, and planned to dump 5 children on me without so much as a conversation. And now that I wasn't playing along with their script, they were trying every manipulation tactic they could think of, guilt, threats, emotional blackmail, to force me back into the box they'd created for me. Something strange happens when you finally see through the fog of manipulation. Suddenly, everything becomes crystal clear. I felt lighter than I had in years. The guilt that had been weighing me down was replaced by something else, determination. I opened my laptop and started searching. Within an hour, I had booked a beachfront hotel in Florida. Nothing too fancy, but it had a balcony overlooking the ocean and was within walking distance to everything I might need. I even splurged on a first-class plane ticket. After all, I had plenty of money since I wouldn't be skiing. The next few days at work were surprisingly peaceful. My family had stopped calling and texting. They probably thought I was home preparing for a week of childcare, maybe buying extra snacks and planning activities. The thought made me smile as I packed my beach clothes and new swimsuit. Taking a tropical vacation in the middle of winter? My colleague Janet asked when she saw me checking the Florida weather forecast. Sometimes you need to do something unexpected, I replied, surprised by how good it felt to say those words out loud. The morning of my flight, I took one last look around my apartment. I'd cleaned everything meticulously, force of habit, I suppose. The empty fridge, the properly locked windows, everything in perfect order. Just like always, except this time, I wouldn't be here to answer any desperate phone calls for babysitting. As the plane took off, I switched off my phone and tucked it into my bag. No social media, no email, no family drama. Just me, the beach, and a whole week of freedom. The Florida air hit me like a warm embrace when I stepped out of the airport. Palm trees swayed in the breeze, and I could smell the salt from the ocean even from here. My hotel room was even better than the pictures. The balcony offered a perfect view of the endless blue horizon, and I could hear the waves crashing against the shore. That first afternoon, I walked barefoot on the beach, letting the warm sand squeeze between my toes. When was the last time I'd done something like this? When was the last time I'd done anything just for me? I swam in the hotel pool, read a book without interruption, and had dinner at a quiet beachside restaurant where no one needed me to cut their food or clean up their spills. I watched the sunset from my balcony, sipping a glass of wine, without a single thought about bedtime routines or morning schedules. My last morning in Florida, I savored my final moments of peace. I knew I'd have to turn my phone back on eventually, face whatever chaos I'd left behind. But I hadn't expected quite what I found. When my phone finally powered up, it started buzzing nonstop. Messages, voicemails, missed calls, hundreds of them. The timestamps showed they started exactly a week ago, early in the morning. My hands trembled slightly as I began scrolling through them. The first messages were from Sarah. "Where are you? We're outside your house." Then Emma, "Ashley, open the door. The kids are getting restless." Michael, "Hey, we brought Tom and Anna like planned. Are you home?" Rachel, "Ashley, what's going on? Pete's asking for his aunt." As I read through the messages, I could picture the scene perfectly, my sisters and cousins, standing outside my empty house with 5 confused children, their suitcases packed for the resort, their carefully laid plans crumbling around them. The tone of the messages changed quickly from confusion to panic. "Ashley, this isn't funny. Where are you? Pick up your phone. What are we supposed to do with the kids? You can't just disappear like this." Then came the anger. Sarah's messages turned nasty. "You selfish witch. How could you do this to us? Emma wasn't much better. I can't believe you're this immature. Mom's birthday is ruined because of you." My Aunt Susan's messages made me wince. I'd never seen her use that kind of language before. "You ungrateful little. You've ruined everything. These children were counting on you." Mom's messages started later in the day. "I'm so disappointed in you, Ashley. I never thought you'd be this selfish. After everything we've done for you." Dad, who rarely texted, had sent just one message: "Your mother is crying. I hope you're happy with yourself." The voicemails were worse. I could hear the anger, the disappointment, the accusations in their voices. Messages from extended family members I hadn't talked to in months suddenly appeared, all of them condemning my behavior. "You've always been so reliable. How could you do this to your own family? Those poor children. You've ruined everything." I sat there in my peaceful hotel room, reading message after message, learning exactly what my family thought of me when I finally stopped being their convenient solution. The words they used, the names they called me, the assumptions they made about my character, it was like meeting a whole new family, one that had been hiding behind fake smiles and casual requests for favors. Without responding to any of them, I packed my bags and headed to the airport. It was time to go home, but I wasn't the same Ashley who had left a week ago. That Ashley might have apologized, might have felt guilty, might have tried to make it up to everyone. But that Ashley was gone. I had just finished unpacking my beach clothes when I heard the aggressive pounding on my front door. Before I could even reach it, I heard a key turning in the lock, the emergency key I'd given my mother years ago, just in case. They burst in like an angry storm, Mom leading the charge, Emma and Sarah flanking her sides, all of them red-faced and wild-eyed. The peaceful feeling I'd cultivated in Florida evaporated instantly. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Sarah screamed, stepping forward. "You ruined everything. Everything." I stood my ground, watching them unleash their fury in my living room. The same living room where I'd babysat their children countless times, where I'd cancelled my own plans to accommodate their emergencies, where I'd always been the reliable one. Mike and John refused to stay with the kids, Emma spat out, referring to their husbands. They both suddenly had important business to take care of. So Sarah had to stay home with all 5 children while we went to the resort. "She missed Mom's birthday because of you. The whole trip was ruined," Mom added, her voice rising. Nobody could enjoy themselves. All we did was talk about how you betrayed us, how you let everyone down. Your father couldn't even ski properly, he was so upset. They continued their tirade, talking over each other, each one trying to outdo the others in expressing their disappointment and anger. The more they talked, the more absurd it all seemed, until something inside me broke, but not in the way they expected. I started laughing. The sound of my laughter cut through their accusations like a knife. They stopped mid-sentence, staring at me as if I'd lost my mind. "What's so funny?" Mom demanded, her face flushing darker. What could possibly be funny about this situation? I wiped tears of laughter from my eyes. Don't you see how ridiculous this is? Do you really not understand how absurd you all sound right now? Absurd? Emma sputtered. What's absurd about? You secretly planned this entire trip, I interrupted, my laughter fading but my voice steady. You decided, without asking me, that I would watch your children. You took my money, told me to take time off work, and then just assumed I would fall in line with your plans. And now that everything fell apart because of your assumptions, you're here calling me the villain? But you've always helped before, Mom said, her voice smaller now, confused. You've never said no. And that's exactly the problem, I cut in. Because I always helped, you started taking advantage of me. You stopped seeing me as a daughter or a sister and started seeing me as free childcare. You stopped considering my feelings, my plans, my life. That's not true, Sarah protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Really? I raised an eyebrow. Then why didn't you include me in the planning? Why didn't you ask me if I wanted to go to the resort? Why did you just assume I'd be happy to stay behind with 5 children while everyone else celebrated? I watched their faces, hoping to see some recognition, some understanding of how they'd treated me. Instead, I saw their expressions harden. You're being selfish, Mom said, her voice cold. You've ruined my birthday, you've hurt your sisters, you've disappointed the children. This isn't how I raised you. I felt the last thread of hope snap. No, Mom. You're the ones being selfish. This whole situation is your fault, not mine. Mom drew herself up to her full height, her face like stone. If that's how you feel, then perhaps I don't have a daughter named Ashley anymore. If that's what you want, Mom, I said quietly, then so be it. It's been 6 weeks since that final confrontation in my living room. 6 weeks of silence, broken only by the occasional notification when one of my family members makes another thinly veiled post on social media. Some people only think about themselves. Mom wrote last week, followed by a dozen sympathetic comments from relatives and family friends who only know her version of the story. Family should always come first, Sarah posted yesterday, with a photo of her daughter. So blessed to have people in my life who understand what that really means. Emma's latest was a long paragraph about toxic people who destroy family bonds with their selfishness. She didn't tag me, of course, but everyone knew who she was talking about. A few months ago, these posts would have devastated me. I would have spent hours crafting responses in my head, losing sleep over their words, wondering if maybe they were right. But now? I just scroll past them, sometimes with a small smile at how predictable they'd become. I've changed my routine. Instead of spending my weekends on standby for emergency babysitting calls, I've joined a local book club. The first meeting felt strange, sitting in a coffee shop on a Saturday morning, knowing my phone wouldn't ring with a desperate plea from one of my sisters. Last week, I booked another vacation, a trip to Europe in the spring. I didn't have to check with anyone's schedule or make sure it wouldn't conflict with someone else's needs. I just saw a good deal and took it. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I think about my nieces and nephews. I miss them, but not the way they were used as weapons against me. I hope that someday, when they're older, they'll understand. Maybe they'll even recognize the same patterns in their own lives and choose differently. I still have the emergency key Mom used that last day. I should probably mail it back, but something stops me each time I think about it. Maybe part of me hopes that one day, they'll understand. That they'll see how their actions and expectations were unfair, how they took advantage of my love for them. That they'll realize family doesn't mean sacrificing yourself to meet everyone else's needs. But I'm not waiting for that day anymore. I'm not putting my life on hold hoping for their approval or understanding. For the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first, and it feels right. Yesterday, I deleted the family group chat from my phone. I didn't make an announcement about it or try to explain myself. I just quietly removed myself from one more obligation, one more source of stress. Some might call this selfishness. My family certainly does. But I've learned that there's a difference between being selfish and having self-respect. Sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do is step away from people who can't see your worth beyond what you can do for them. My name is Riley, and I was 7 years old when my brother Tommy was born. He came into this world too early. I remember pressing my nose against the glass, watching him lie there in that clear box with tubes and wires everywhere. That was the beginning of when everything changed. Mom switched to part-time work to spend more time with Tommy. She'd sit for hours in the rocking chair beside his incubator, just watching him breathe. Dad would rush to the hospital straight from work, not even stopping to say hello to me at home. When Tommy finally came home, things didn't get better, they got worse. Mom would jump at his smallest whimper, while I learned to take care of myself. I started making my own sandwiches for lunch because Mom was too busy feeding Tommy. I learned to tie my shoes and do my hair because no one had time to help me anymore. The first time I really understood how different things were was during my 8th birthday. Mom and Dad forgot about it completely. I sat at the kitchen table that morning, waiting for someone to say something, to bring out a cake, or even just wish me happy birthday. Instead, Mom was busy trying to get Tommy to eat his breakfast, and Dad was reading the newspaper. It wasn't until my teacher, Mrs. Roberts, called home that evening to wish me happy birthday that Mom remembered. She quickly threw together a small cake and gave me one of Tommy's old stuffed animals as a present, still with his name written on the tag. I learned to find comfort elsewhere, mainly at my Aunt Sarah's house. She was Dad's younger sister, and unlike my parents, she actually saw me. Her husband, Uncle Mark, and their daughter Emma became my real family in many ways. They lived just across town, and I started spending more and more time there. She'd take me shopping with Emma, buying us matching outfits and treating us exactly the same. One time, Mom saw me wearing a new dress Aunt Sarah had bought me. Her face twisted into something between anger and shame. "Sarah, you're spoiling her," she complained on the phone that evening. "We can't afford to keep up with your gifts." The truth was, they could afford plenty for Tommy. He got new toys almost every week, while I wore the same clothes until they literally fell apart. I remember one particular incident when I was 11 that still makes my blood boil when I think about it. My teacher pulled Mom aside after school one day. "Mrs. Anderson, I'm concerned about Riley," Ms. Thompson said quietly. "She's been wearing the same clothes for 2 months now. They're getting quite worn." Mom's face turned red. "Oh, those are just her favorite clothes," she lied smoothly. "She insists on wearing them. You know how children are." But when we got home, Mom's embarrassment turned to rage. She grabbed my arm so hard it left marks. "How dare you shame us like that?" she screamed, striking me across the face. "Do you want everyone to think we're bad parents?" I wanted to scream back that they were bad parents, at least to me. But I just stood there, holding my stinging cheek, watching as Tommy played with his brand new remote control car in the next room. By the time Tommy turned 8, I'd become more of a live-in maid than a daughter. Every morning started the same way: wake up early, make breakfast for everyone, pack Tommy's lunch, and clean up after them all. The dishes were always waiting for me when I got home from school, along with a list of other chores Mom had thought up during the day. One evening, after spending hours cooking dinner, doing laundry, and helping Tommy with his homework, I finally broke down. My hands were raw from scrubbing pots, and my back ached from standing all day. "Mom, I'm exhausted," I said, my voice cracking. Can't someone else help with the housework? Dad looked up from his phone just long enough to say, "You're 13 now, Riley. You're old enough to help around the house. That's what responsible adults do." "But Tommy doesn't have to do anything," I protested. "Tommy's still young," Mom snapped. "He needs time to be a child." I wanted to scream that I was still a child too, but what was the point? Instead, I found myself spending more and more time at Aunt Sarah's house. Their home became my sanctuary, a place where I could just be a kid. Emma was 5 years younger than me, but she became like the little sister I wished Tommy had been. We'd spend hours creating elaborate structures, something I never got to do at home because Tommy would always destroy anything I built. Sometimes I'd stay overnight, sleeping in their spare room that gradually accumulated some of my things, a toothbrush, some pajamas, a few books. My parents never called to check where I was. I don't think they even noticed I was gone most of the time. Uncle Mark became the father figure I desperately needed. He'd often find me doing homework at their kitchen table late into the evening. "You know, Riley," he said one night, helping me with my algebra, "your parents might not see it, but you've got a bright future ahead of you. You need to focus on your studies though. Get good grades, win those scholarships, because I hate to say it, but I don't think your parents are planning to help with college." His words hit hard, but they also gave me purpose. I threw myself into my studies with renewed determination. I joined the school's debate club, staying late after school 3 days a week to practice. I entered every academic competition I could find, science fairs, essay contests, math Olympics. I won first place in the regional debate championship, beating students from 15 other schools. The local newspaper even did a small write-up about it. When I showed the article to my parents at dinner, Mom glanced at it briefly and said, "That's nice, dear. Oh, Tommy, tell Riley about how you scored a goal in soccer practice today." But their indifference only made me work harder. I started taking advanced placement classes, staying up late to complete extra credit assignments. My teachers noticed, even if my parents didn't. They started suggesting summer academic programs and college prep courses. When I turned 16, I got my first real job at the Sunshine Cafe, working as a waitress after school. For the first time in my life, I had my own money, earned by my own efforts. The first paycheck felt like freedom in my hands. I remember staring at the numbers on the paper, already planning what I could buy, maybe some new clothes that actually fit, or school supplies I wouldn't have to beg for. But my brief moment of independence didn't last long. Mom cornered me in the kitchen one evening, Dad standing behind her with his arms crossed. "So," she said, her voice sharp. "When were you planning to tell us about your job? You're making money while living under our roof, eating our food, using our utilities." Dad nodded. "We've decided that it's only fair you contribute to the household expenses. Half of your paycheck should cover it." Still, even with half my earnings gone, I managed to save enough to buy myself a smartphone. Nothing super fancy, but it was new, and it was mine, the first real piece of technology I'd ever owned. I'd been using an ancient flip phone that could barely send texts, while Tommy had the latest iPhone. I was so proud of that phone. I downloaded educational apps, used it to take notes in class, even joined some study groups online. For a week, everything was perfect. Then Tommy spotted me using it. "Hey, that's a nice phone," he said, walking into my room without knocking. "Way better than that piece of junk you had before. Give it to me." I clutched the phone tighter. "No way. I bought this with my own money." His face twisted into that familiar spoiled expression. "Come on, my phone is getting old. I need a new one." When I refused again, he stormed out. I could hear him thundering down the stairs, and I knew exactly where he was going. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, Mom and Dad appeared in my doorway. "Riley," Dad said in his reasonable voice that was anything but reasonable. "Your brother tells us you're being selfish." "I bought this phone myself," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "With the money I earned after giving you half of my paycheck." They left eventually, but not before calling me ungrateful, selfish, and a terrible sister. I went to bed that night with my phone clutched tight to my chest. 3 days later, I found it in pieces on my bedroom floor. The screen was shattered, the case cracked open like someone had deliberately stomped on it. When I confronted Tommy, he just smirked. "Maybe you should take better care of your things," he said with a shrug. "Stuff breaks sometimes." The day my college acceptance letters arrived should have been one of the happiest days of my life. All those late nights studying, the extra classes, the academic competitions, they had finally paid off. 3 colleges had accepted me: Riverside University, Wellington College, and our local state university. I sat on my bed, spreading the letters out in front of me. Riverside and Wellington were my dream schools, but they both required substantial tuition payments. State University wasn't as prestigious, but they'd offered me a full scholarship. The choice was obvious: I couldn't afford to pay for college on my own, and I knew better than to expect help from my parents. There was just one catch. The acceptance letter from State University included a note about housing: as you reside within city limits, you do not qualify for student housing. Our dormitories are reserved for out-of-state and long-distance students only. I decided to share the news with my parents over dinner that night. Tommy was there too, shoveling pasta into his mouth while playing some game on his phone, the latest model, of course. "I got accepted to college," I announced, trying to keep the pride in my voice. 3 of them, actually. "I'm going to attend State University, they're offering me a full scholarship." To my surprise, both my parents looked up. Mom even smiled. "Well, that's wonderful, Riley," Dad said, actually sounding pleased for once. "You see what hard work can accomplish?" I felt a warm glow in my chest. Maybe things were finally changing. Maybe they were finally seeing me. Then Mom cleared her throat. "Now that you're going to be an adult student, we need to discuss your living arrangements. We've decided you should pay rent." When they named the amount, I literally choked on my pasta. Tommy had to pound me on the back, looking far too amused by my distress. That's almost $1,000. I gasped when I could breathe again. "That's impossible. I can't afford that." Mom shrugged, taking a delicate bite of her dinner. "We pay rent for this house every month, Riley. Have been for years. You're an adult now, it's time you learned about real-world responsibilities." "But I'll be a full-time student," I protested. "Even if I worked 2 part-time jobs, I couldn't make that much." My parents exchanged a look I'd seen many times before, the one that meant trouble for me. "Well," Dad said slowly, "if you can't contribute to the household expenses, perhaps it's time you found your own place to live. Time to stand on your own 2 feet." "But what about Tommy?" I couldn't help asking. "Will he have to pay rent when he turns 18? "That's different," Dad snapped. "Your brother has special needs." "Special needs?" Tommy was perfectly healthy now, hadn't had any health issues since he was a toddler. But I knew arguing was pointless. I spent the next 2 days packing my life into boxes and bags. It wasn't much. Years of being the less favored child meant I didn't have many possessions. Each item I packed felt like a reminder of all the things I'd never had, all the love I'd never received. As I carried my last box out the front door, I heard Tommy's voice behind me. Finally, he crowed. "I'm going to turn your room into the ultimate gaming setup. Maybe I'll put the big TV where your bed was, and the gaming chairs can go by the window." With nowhere else to go, I found myself standing on Aunt Sarah's doorstep that night, trying to hold back tears as I rang the doorbell. Uncle Mark opened the door, took one look at my face and the bags at my feet, and immediately called for Aunt Sarah. "They did what?" Aunt Sarah's voice rose in fury as I explained what had happened. "They kicked you out? Their own daughter?" "Because I couldn't pay their rent," I said, my voice breaking. "They said since I'm 18 now." "I don't care if you're 18 or 80, Uncle Mark interrupted, his face red with anger. "You're staying with us. No arguments." That night, as I lay in their guest room, my room now, I finally let myself cry. Not just from sadness or fear, but from relief. For the first time in my life, I felt truly at home. I spent that summer working full-time at the Sunshine Cafe, saving every penny I could for college expenses. Aunt Sarah and Uncle Mark refused to let me pay rent or buy groceries, insisting I focus on preparing for school. When fall came, I started my classes at State University. It was hard work, balancing studies with my part-time job at the cafe, but I was determined to succeed. Aunt Sarah and Uncle Mark treated me exactly like they treated Emma, helping me with assignments, celebrating my achievements, even insisting I join them on their family vacation to the beach. It was strange, being treated as an equal member of the family. Every time they included me in family photos, every time they introduced me as our Riley to their friends, every time they hung my achievements on the wall next to Emma's, it healed a little piece of my heart. My parents and Tommy? They became strangers. Whenever we passed each other on the street, they would look right through me, as if I were invisible. It hurt at first, but gradually, I realized it hurt less than when they had been in my life. But Tommy couldn't leave well enough alone. One afternoon, during my shift at the cafe, he walked in with a group of his friends. I knew immediately from his smirk that this wasn't a coincidence. Well, he drawled loudly as I approached their table. Look who it is, guys, my sister the waitress. Still serving coffee after college? Really living the dream, huh? His friend snickered. I kept my face neutral, pulled out my order pad. Welcome to Sunshine Cafe. What can I get for you? Oh, I don't know. Tommy made a show of studying the menu. What would you recommend? I mean, you're the expert on cheap food, right? More laughter from his friends. Tommy spent the next 20 minutes ordering and then sending back everything I brought, complaining that the coffee was too hot, then too cold, that his sandwich had too much mayo, then not enough. Maybe if you'd studied something useful instead of just running away from home, he said loudly as I cleared their table, you wouldn't be stuck in this dead-end job. I wanted to tell him that I wasn't stuck anywhere, that I was working here by choice while I pursued my real career goals. But I just kept clearing the table, remembering what Aunt Sarah always said, some people are so small inside that they can only feel big by making others feel small. After graduating college, I landed an entry-level position at Anderson and Mills Consulting. The salary wasn't amazing, but it was steady, and more importantly, it was a foot in the door. I threw myself into the work with the same determination that had gotten me through school. After my second paycheck, I found a small one-bedroom apartment across town. When I told Aunt Sarah and Uncle Mark I was moving out, they both got teary-eyed. Are you sure you don't want to stay longer? Aunt Sarah asked, helping me pack. You know you're always welcome here. I hugged her tight. I know, but it's time for me to stand on my own feet. Besides, I'll visit so often you'll get sick of me. And I kept that promise. Every Sunday dinner, every holiday, random weeknight visits, I made sure they knew they were still my family. Emma would come crash at my apartment for sister sleepovers when she needed a break from college life, and I'd help her with her assignments just like Uncle Mark had once helped me. Years passed, and I worked my way up the corporate ladder. Late nights, weekend projects, additional certifications, I did whatever it took. My dedication paid off. By the time I was 28, I'd been promoted to Senior Operations Director, managing a team of 30 people and earning more money than I'd ever dreamed possible. I'm thinking of buying a house, I announced one Sunday over dinner at Aunt Sarah and Uncle Mark's. Something with a nice yard, maybe even a pool. That's wonderful. Aunt Sarah beamed. Oh, that reminds me. I ran into your mother at the grocery store last week. I tried to tell her how well you're doing. I thought maybe after all these years. She shook her head. She cut me off before I could finish. Said she doesn't have a daughter and doesn't care what you're doing. The words hung in the air like poison. Uncle Mark reached over and squeezed my hand, but I wasn't sad. In fact, for the first time in years, I felt absolutely clear about what I needed to do. The next day, I called my friend Jennifer, who worked as a realtor. Hey Jen, I need a favor. Can you find out who owns the house at 1247 Maple Street? Jennifer called back with the owner's contact information. Mr. Peterson had owned the property for over 20 years, the entire time my family had been renting it. My hand shook slightly as I dialed his number. Mr. Peterson? My name is Riley Anderson. I'm interested in buying your property on Maple Street. I'm prepared to offer 20% above market value. Cash deal, quick closing. 2 weeks later, I sat in a lawyer's office, signing the final paperwork. As I wrote my name on the last page, I couldn't help but smile. The house where I'd experienced so much pain was now mine. My parents and Tommy were still living there, completely unaware that their landlord had changed. I called Jennifer again the next day. One more favor, I said. Could you contact my parents as their real estate agent? Tell them the house has a new owner who wants to inspect the property and discuss their lease. Just don't mention my name. Oh, I am going to enjoy this, Jennifer laughed. When do you want to do it? We set the date for the following Tuesday. I spent the morning reviewing the property documents, making sure everything was in perfect order. As I drove to my old house, my heart was pounding, but not from fear, from anticipation. The house looked exactly the same as when I'd left it 6 years ago. I rang the doorbell. Mom opened the door, and for a moment, we just stared at each other. Her face went from confusion to shock to anger in the span of seconds. Riley, what are you doing here? She demanded. Dad appeared behind her, and I could hear Tommy's heavy footsteps coming down the stairs. Get out, Dad snapped. We're waiting for someone important. The new owner of the house is coming to inspect the property. I smiled, reached into my briefcase, and pulled out the deed. Oh, he's already here. I bought the house 2 weeks ago. Would you like to see the documentation? The silence that followed was deafening. Tommy had reached the bottom of the stairs now, his mouth hanging open. That's impossible, Dad stammered. Actually, it's quite possible when you're a senior operations director at one of the city's top consulting firms, I replied, stepping past them into the house, my house. Mr. Peterson was quite happy with my offer. The transformation in their faces was almost comical. Mom's scowl melted into a sickly sweet smile. Riley, sweetheart, she cooed, why don't you come sit down? I'll make some tea. We can catch up. Like a proper family, Dad added quickly. Family? I couldn't help but laugh. The same family that threw me out on the street when I couldn't pay their astronomical rent? The same family that told everyone they didn't have a daughter? Now, Riley, Mom started, we were just trying to teach you responsibility. Oh, I learned responsibility, I cut her off. I learned it very well. In fact, let's discuss your new rent terms. I named the new monthly amount, double what they'd been paying. The color drained from their faces. That's impossible, Tommy exploded. We can't afford that. Where are we supposed to get that kind of money? I shrugged, echoing their words from years ago. Not my problem. You have until the 1st of next month to either pay the new rate or move out. They followed me to the door, their tones switching rapidly between pleading and threatening. Mom tried to grab my arm, but I pulled away. Riley, please, she begged. We're your family. No, I said firmly. You stopped being my family the day you chose your comfort over your daughter's future. You have 30 days to decide what you're going to do. 1 month later, I stood across the street, watching as my parents and Tommy loaded the last of their belongings into a moving truck. They'd tried calling me multiple times over the past weeks, alternating between begging for more time and threatening legal action. I hadn't answered a single call. Mom noticed me first. She nudged Dad, who looked up from the box he was carrying. The hatred in their eyes was palpable. Tommy slammed the truck's rear door with unnecessary force, glaring in my direction. None of them said a word to me, they just got into their vehicles and drove away, leaving behind the house they'd rented for over 2 decades. I waited until they were gone before walking up to my property. My property. The word still felt strange in my mind. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house felt bigger now, emptier, but still heavy with memories. Over the next 3 months, I transformed the house completely. The walls that had witnessed my tears came down, creating an open-concept living space. The kitchen where I'd spent countless hours cooking for an ungrateful family was gutted and modernized. Tommy's precious game room, my old bedroom, became a home office with large windows and built-in bookshelves. Every change felt like erasing another painful memory. The contractor stripped the old wallpaper, and with it went the marks where I'd once measured my height alone because no one else cared to do it. The creaky floorboard that had always betrayed my late-night study sessions disappeared under new hardwood. The stained carpet that had held years of spills I'd been forced to clean up was replaced with sleek tiles. "It looks amazing," Aunt Sarah said when I gave her, Uncle Mark, and Emma the grand tour. "It doesn't even look like the same house anymore." "That was the point," I replied, leading them onto the new back deck, my favorite addition to the house. We sat there drinking lemonade, my real family, watching the sunset over the backyard where a swing set once stood. Now there was a garden starting to bloom, new life springing from old soil. I never saw my parents or Tommy again after that day they moved out. Sometimes I heard snippets about them through the neighborhood grapevine. They'd moved to a small apartment across town. Tommy had finally moved out on his own when the reality of apartment living didn't suit him. But their lives weren't my concern anymore. My life was here, in this renovated house that no longer held ghosts, with Sunday dinners at Aunt Sarah and Uncle Mark's, movie nights with Emma, and holiday celebrations filled with genuine love and laughter. I had finally found what I'd been looking for all along, not revenge, not success, but the simple truth that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about love, support, and choosing to be there for each other, no matter what. I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but I need to get it off my chest. My name's Robin, and I'm 45 years old. I own a pretty successful restaurant in the city, something I built from the ground up and am genuinely proud of. 5 years ago, that restaurant brought someone special into my life, or at least I thought he was special at the time. James, not his real name, was a contractor I hired for some renovation work. He was charming, hardworking, and had these kind eyes that made me feel like I could trust him. During the renovations, we started talking more and more. He told me about his daughter, Lisa, who was 13 at the time, and how he'd been raising her alone since his ex-wife lost custody due to her drinking problem. I found myself looking forward to our meetings, and eventually, James asked me out for coffee. That coffee turned into dinner, dinner turned into dating, and before I knew it, we were talking about marriage. Everything seemed perfect. James was attentive, Lisa was sweet, and I felt like I'd finally found the family I'd always wanted. We got married a year after we started dating. James and Lisa moved into my house, and at first, everything was wonderful. I threw myself into being the best stepmom I could be. Lisa and I would cook together, go shopping, and I made sure she had everything she needed. I paid for family vacations, bought her clothes, and tried to give her the kind of life I wished I'd had at her age. Lisa did see her mom occasionally, something I wasn't totally comfortable with, given what I knew about her history. Apparently, she'd almost burned their house down multiple times while drunk, which is why she lost custody. But James insisted it was important for Lisa to maintain that connection, and her mom had supposedly gotten sober. "She's still her mother," he'd say whenever I expressed concern. "Lisa needs to know her mom still cares about her." The one time I saw Lisa's mom at a school event, she didn't look sober to me. There was something about the way she swayed slightly while standing still, how her eyes couldn't quite focus. But I kept my mouth shut. After all, who was I to interfere? I was just the stepmom, right? God, if I'd only known then what I know now. If I'd only realized that my desire to be the perfect stepmom was blinding me to what was really going on. But hindsight is 20/20, isn't it? And the real trouble hadn't even started yet. Not even close. Time flew by, and before I knew it, Lisa was turning 18. She was stressed about both her upcoming birthday and graduation, pacing around the house like a nervous wreck. "What if something goes wrong?" she kept saying. "What if people don't come? What if it's not perfect?" I pulled her into a hug one evening when I found her overthinking everything again. "Hey, everything's going to be fine," I told her. "In fact, I have an idea. Why don't we have your party at the restaurant? We'll book the best tables in the house." Her eyes lit up immediately. I knew my restaurant had become quite the hotspot in town, and Lisa had been dying to show it off to her friends. "Really?" she squealed, already pulling out her phone. "Oh my God, my Instagram is going to be so lit. Everyone at school is going to be so jealous." I threw myself into the preparations. I wanted everything to be absolutely perfect for her. I even took her shopping for a dress, this gorgeous blue number that made her look so grown up I almost cried in the fitting room. "How many people are you thinking of inviting?" I asked her while we were going over the details one evening. She hesitated for a moment, fidgeting with her napkin. About 30 people?" "Great, can you get me a guest list so I can make sure we have enough space and food for everyone?" "Oh, I haven't really made one yet," she said quickly. "Just plan for 30, okay?" Looking back, I should have pressed harder about that list. But I was so caught up in making everything perfect that I just nodded and moved on. The day of the party arrived, and everything looked amazing. The tables were beautifully decorated, the food was perfect, and Lisa looked stunning in her new dress. James's relatives were there, Lisa's friends were taking selfies everywhere, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. And then she walked in. I recognized Lisa's mom immediately, even though she was swaying slightly on her feet. She was clearly drunk, her eyes glassy as she announced to everyone that she was here to wish her daughter happy birthday. I was sitting next to Lisa when her mom stumbled over to our table. She glared at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "Get up," she demanded, waving her hand at me. "That's my seat. I'm her real mother, not you." I tried to keep my voice calm and reasonable. "There are plenty of empty seats at the next table with the other guests. Why don't you join them?" "No," she practically shouted. "This is my place. You need to get out of my place. Who do you think you are?" I looked at James, desperately hoping he'd say something, do something, anything to defuse the situation. But my husband just sat there, his face red, staring down at his plate like it was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady, despite the scene unfolding in my restaurant. This was Lisa's special day, and I wasn't about to let it be completely ruined if I could help it. "Let me be very clear," I said, looking directly at Lisa's mom. "You have two choices. You can either take a seat at the next table with the other guests, or I can have security escort you out." Her face contorted with rage. "Oh, listen to you. Little Miss Moneybags, throwing her weight around." She staggered slightly, grabbing the edge of the table to steady herself. "You think you can buy everything, don't you? Buy my husband, buy my daughter's love?" The other diners were starting to stare. I could see my regular customers at nearby tables, trying not to look while obviously listening to every word. My staff were hovering uncertainly at the edges of the room, waiting for my signal. "You just waltz in here with your fancy restaurant and your big house," Lisa's mom continued, her voice getting louder with each word. "Think you can replace me because you've got money? Well, guess what? You can't buy family." Before anyone could react, she grabbed a plate of food and hurled it to the floor. The crash of breaking china seemed to echo through the suddenly silent restaurant. Then another plate followed, and another. Food splattered across the expensive carpet I just had installed last month. I caught my security team's eye and gave them a subtle nod. They moved in smoothly, professionally, just as they'd been trained. "Ma'am, it's time for you to leave," the head of security said firmly, taking her arm. I watched as they escorted her out, her screams echoing down the hallway until the front door finally closed behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. I stood up, plastering on my best restaurant owner smile. I'm so sorry for the disturbance, everyone. Please, enjoy your meals. Another round of drinks for all tables on the house. The regular customers seemed to take this in stride, returning to their conversations after a few minutes. But at our tables, where Lisa's friends and family sat, the whispers were constant. I could see them shooting glances at Lisa, at James, at me. The story would be all over social media by morning, I was sure. Lisa sat there, pale as a ghost, pushing food around her plate. The beautiful blue dress suddenly seemed to dwarf her, making her look young and vulnerable. The Instagram-perfect party she'd dreamed of had turned into a nightmare. I have a headache, she said after about an hour, her voice barely above a whisper. Can we go home? The party broke up quickly after that. Everyone made polite excuses, but I could hear them whispering as they left. Poor Lisa. Did you see her mom? Can you believe what happened? As soon as we got home, Lisa went straight to her room. I followed her upstairs, wanting to talk, to comfort her somehow. Lisa, honey, can we talk? I need to be alone right now, she said, closing the door in my face. I found James in the kitchen, staring into a glass of whiskey. Did you invite her? I asked quietly. Did you tell your ex-wife about the party? He shook his head. No, I wouldn't do that. And suddenly it all clicked, why Lisa had been so evasive about the guest list, why she'd refused to show it to me. She had invited her mother herself. Despite everything, despite the history, despite the custody issues, she'd wanted her mom there. The morning after the birthday disaster, Lisa came down to breakfast looking like she hadn't slept at all. She slid into her usual chair, not making eye contact with anyone. How are you feeling, sweetie? I asked, trying to keep my voice light and normal. Fine, she muttered, staring at her cereal bowl. And that was it. One word. The days that followed were like living in a ghost house. Lisa went from being my chatty, bubbly stepdaughter to practically a stranger. Whenever I walked into a room where she was talking with James, she'd immediately clam up. It was like someone had hit a mute button. I tried to talk to James about it one night after Lisa had gone to bed. Don't you think we should do something? Maybe get her to talk to someone? He just waved his hand dismissively. She's fine. She's just processing what happened. Give her space. But it wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. Despite the tension at home, we all showed up for Lisa's graduation ceremony. James and I sat in the audience, and I clapped until my hands hurt when they called her name. She looked beautiful in her cap and gown, and for a moment, when she glanced our way and smiled, I thought maybe things were finally getting better. We had a celebration at our house afterward. I'd ordered all of Lisa's favorite dishes from the restaurant, the mushroom risotto she loved, those little crab cakes she always stole from the kitchen when she visited me at work, even that ridiculous chocolate cake that takes 3 days to make properly. Her classmates came over, and the house was full of laughter and excited chatter about college plans and summer vacations. For a few hours, it felt almost normal again. Lisa was smiling, talking, looking like her old self. I started to relax, thinking maybe we'd turned a corner. Then her phone rang. Lisa stepped into the hallway to answer it, but came back a few minutes later with a determined look on her face. She walked straight up to me, the first time she'd voluntarily approached me in days. My mom's coming over, she announced. She wants to congratulate me on graduating. My stomach dropped. Absolutely not, I said, memories of the birthday disaster still fresh in my mind. Lisa, think about what happened at your birthday. She showed up drunk, caused a scene, destroyed property. That was your fault. Lisa cut me off, her voice rising. None of that would have happened if you'd just given up your seat to her. She's my real mom, you should have just moved. I stood there, feeling like I'd been slapped. All this time, all these days of silence, and this was what she'd been thinking? That I was the one to blame? I turned to James, desperately hoping he'd finally step up and be the father his daughter needed. James, please. Tell her. Tell her how inappropriate her mother's behavior was at the birthday party. But James just sat there, examining his shoes like they held the secrets of the universe. The same deafening silence I'd gotten used to lately. The same cowardly retreat I'd seen at the restaurant. Something inside me snapped. 5 years of trying to be the perfect stepmom, of walking on eggshells, of making excuses for everyone else's behavior, it all came pouring out. "Listen," I said to Lisa. "That was my restaurant. I arranged that entire party for you. I bought you that dress you wanted so badly. I did everything I could to make it perfect. And your mother? She showed up drunk, caused a scene, and destroyed property. She didn't even bring you a present, Lisa. All she brought was chaos and embarrassment." Lisa's face went from angry to furious in an instant. "Oh my God, here we go," she shouted, throwing her hands up. "It's always about the money with you, isn't it? I paid for this, I bought that. You think because you have money, you can control everyone and everything." She spun around to face her classmates, who were standing awkwardly in our living room, clearly wishing they were anywhere else. "My real mom will be here soon," she announced with a bitter laugh. "It'll be nice to finally have a normal person here instead of this." She gestured at me like I was something disgusting she'd found on the bottom of her shoe. "Your mother is not coming into this house," I said firmly, trying to keep my voice steady despite the anger and hurt building inside me. "Not after what happened at the restaurant." That was when Lisa completely lost it. Her face turned red, and she started screaming at me in front of everyone. "You're not my mother," she shrieked. "You're nothing to me. You're nobody. Who do you think you are to tell me what to do? Keep your filthy nose out of my business. You're just some woman my dad married for her money." The room went dead silent. I could see Lisa's friends shifting uncomfortably, some staring at their phones, others finding the ceiling suddenly fascinating. Lisa turned to her friends, her voice dripping with venom. "Let's get out of here. I don't want to celebrate in her house anyway." She emphasized the word her like it was something dirty. They all filed out quickly, nobody making eye contact with me. The front door slammed so hard the windows rattled. I stood there in my empty living room, surrounded by half-eaten food and abandoned plates, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Surely now, finally, James would say something. He'd have to stand up for me after this, right? James cleared his throat. When he spoke, his voice was cold and hard. "You had no right to throw the house and money in her face like that. You didn't need to remind her that this is your house and your money paid for everything." That was low. I stared at him, feeling like I was seeing him clearly for the first time. "Are you kidding me right now? Where were you when your ex-wife was throwing plates around my restaurant? Where were you just now when your daughter was screaming insults at me in front of her entire graduating class? You're the adult here," he snapped. "You should know better than to get into arguments with a teenager. And you should know better than to bury your head in the sand like a coward," I shot back. "But that's what you do, isn't it? You just sit there silently while your ex-wife and your daughter treat me like garbage. Well, guess what? I'm done being everyone's punching bag." James's face turned an even darker shade of red. Without another word, he stormed off upstairs. I heard the guest room door slam a few minutes later. The next morning's breakfast was like sitting in a morgue. James pushed his eggs around his plate, not looking at me. I was about to get up and leave when Lisa stumbled in, still wearing her clothes from the graduation party. The smell of alcohol hit me before she even made it to the table. I looked at James, waiting for him to say something, anything, about our teenage daughter coming home drunk at 9 a.m. But he just kept studying those fascinating eggs. "Where have you been all night?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Lisa turned to me, her bloodshot eyes filled with contempt. "None of your business," she sneered. "You're not my mother. You're not anyone. Just an empty space taking up room in this house." Then she turned and stumbled upstairs to bed. James just sat there, silent as always. I was starting to think silence was his superpower. The next week was like living in a house with a particularly vindictive ghost. Lisa wouldn't speak to me directly at all. Instead, she'd talk about me like I wasn't even there. "Dad," she'd say, pointing at me like I was a piece of furniture, "can you ask your wife to pass the salt?" Or she'd walk into a room and announce to James, "This woman is in my way, waiting for me to move." I kept my mouth shut and watched it all unfold. After 5 years of trying to be the perfect stepmom, I was done. Let them show their true colors. And boy, did they ever. It was Sunday, and James and I were having another silent dinner when Lisa burst into the dining room, waving an envelope like she'd won the lottery. "Dad, I got in," she shouted, practically dancing around the table. "Berkeley accepted me. I got into my dream school." I watched as she hugged her father, both of them grinning ear to ear. Then Lisa turned to him and said, with a smirk I'll never forget, "Tell your wife she needs to pay for my tuition." Something inside me just snapped. I smiled, not a nice smile, and said clearly, "I won't be paying for your college education. You've made it very clear that I'm not your mother. I'm nobody, remember? Just an empty space? Well, this empty space's wallet is closed. Why don't you ask your real mother to pay for college?" Lisa's face turned an alarming shade of red. "You vindictive bitch," she screamed, tears starting to stream down her face. "You're doing this to punish me. You're just evil." I stood there, feeling strangely calm as she hurled insult after insult at me. It was like watching a storm through a window. I could see the chaos, but it couldn't touch me anymore. "Dad," she whirled around to face James. "Make her pay. She has to pay. Tell her." James cleared his throat, using that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. "Come on, honey, stop joking around. You know you need to pay for Lisa's education." I pushed my chair back and stood up. "I've made myself perfectly clear. I will not pay tens of thousands of dollars in tuition for someone who has spent weeks telling me I'm nothing to her. Someone who treats me like I'm less than dirt in my own home." I turned and walked out of the dining room, Lisa's screams following me up the stairs. I could hear her throwing what sounded like another spectacular tantrum, plates crashing, chairs scraping, theatrical sobs. Like mother, like daughter, I thought grimly. I sat in my bedroom, listening to the chaos downstairs slowly die down. I knew it wasn't over. James would be up soon enough, ready to play his part in this family drama. Sure enough, about 30 minutes later, my bedroom door burst open. James stormed in, his face flushed with anger. "I'm sick of this," he spat. "I'm so tired of you playing these games. You need to grow up and pay for Lisa's education." I looked at him calmly, from where I sat on our bed. "No. You and your ex-wife can figure out how to pay for Berkeley. I'm sure between the two of you, you can work something out." He started pacing the room like a caged animal. "You're being completely selfish. She's just a teenager, for God's sake. You're the adult here, you need to be the bigger person." I watched him pace, remembering all the times he'd used that same argument. Be the bigger person, let it go, she's just a kid. Always making excuses, always expecting me to smile and nod and open my wallet while they treated me like garbage. "A teenager who's old enough to know better," I said quietly. "A teenager who's made it very clear how she feels about me. Why should I invest in her future when she's shown nothing but contempt for me?" James stopped pacing and turned to face me, his expression hard. "Fine. Then let me make this simple for you. Either you pay for Lisa's education, or I'm filing for divorce." He clearly expected me to cave. To break down crying, or beg him not to leave, or immediately agree to pay. That's what the bigger person would do, right? I shrugged. "Okay, get a divorce." The look on his face was almost comical. His mouth opened and closed a few times, but no words came out. He clearly hadn't expected me to call his bluff. "I'll call my lawyer first thing tomorrow morning," I added, my voice steady. "In the meantime, you and Lisa should start looking for a new place to live." James stood there for what felt like forever, staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Finally, without a word, he turned and left the room, closing the door quietly behind him. The next morning, I walked downstairs to find James and Lisa sitting at the dining room table, waiting for me like some kind of ambush. The scene was perfectly staged, Lisa with her red-rimmed eyes, James with his practiced concerned father expression. "Honey," James said, smiling that manipulative smile I'd somehow never noticed before, "we've all had a chance to calm down and think about things." Lisa nodded eagerly, like a well-trained puppet. "We all overreacted yesterday," she added, her voice sweet as honey. I stood in the doorway, feeling a strange sense of clarity wash over me. It was like I was seeing them both for the first time, really seeing them. "The thing is," James continued, his voice taking on that reasonable tone he used when he wanted something, "we're family. Families fight, but they also make up. And since you were the one who escalated things with this college situation, it would mean a lot if you took the first step toward reconciliation." Lisa jumped in right on cue. "Yeah, and if you helped with tuition, it would show that you're really sorry and want to make things right." I almost laughed. They really thought they could manipulate me this easily? That all it would take was some fake remorse and practiced lines about family? "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone, "I just got off the phone with my lawyer 5 minutes ago. The divorce papers should be ready by this afternoon." The change in their expressions was instantaneous. Lisa's sweet smile vanished, replaced by shock. James's face turned that familiar shade of angry red. I turned to Lisa. "Congratulations. You won't have to deal with your not mother interfering in your life anymore. Isn't that what you wanted?" Lisa burst into tears, real ones this time, not the calculated ones from before. But I was done being manipulated by teenage tears. James stood up so fast, his chair fell over. Without a word, he stormed upstairs. I could hear him yanking drawers open, slamming closet doors. They packed in silence. No more manipulative speeches, no more fake tears. Just the sound of suitcases being filled and doors being slammed. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The messages started that night. First from James. "We all said things we regret. Let's talk about this like adults." Then from Lisa. "I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, but you're being really unfair about college." When I didn't respond, they got nastier. "You're destroying this family with your stubbornness. I hope you're happy being alone with your money. You'll regret this when you're old and have nobody." The divorce was quick, thanks to the prenup I'd insisted on. James tried to contest it, of course, but my lawyer shut that down fast. He got nothing, not a penny of my restaurant's profits, not a dime of my savings. I hear things about them sometimes, through mutual friends. They're living in a small apartment across town. Lisa couldn't afford Berkeley and is working at a mall somewhere. James is trying to restart his contracting business, but it's not going well. I've redecorated the house since they left. Threw out all the furniture that reminded me of them. The place feels bigger now, lighter somehow. Or maybe that's just me, finally free of the weight of trying to buy love from people who were only ever interested in selling. I often find myself thinking about how different my life could have been if my parents hadn't divorced when I was 7. Back then, I was just Jessica Thompson, a regular kid living with my mom and dad in a cozy house they'd bought together. I remember those early years being filled with simple joys, family dinners, weekend trips to the park, and bedtime stories read by both parents. Everything changed when they split up. Dad moved out but left us the house and made sure we were taken care of financially. He paid enough in alimony that Mom didn't need to work, which she seemed pretty happy about. A year later, Mom met Steve. He seemed nice enough at first, always bringing candy when he visited and trying to make me laugh. They got married pretty quickly, and soon after, my half-sister Cindy was born. That's when things started to change. Steve began giving me these looks, like I was somehow in the way. He'd make little comments when Mom wasn't around, stuff like, don't you miss your dad, or wouldn't you rather live with him? I was 12 when I overheard the conversation that would change everything. Look, Steve was saying, his voice low but firm, I got that promotion at work. My salary's nearly doubled. You won't need to work, or Jessica's child support. But that money helps, Mom replied. It pays for a lot. Come on, Sarah. We both know Jessica would be better off with her father. Plus, wouldn't it be nice to just focus on our family? On Cindy? The way she didn't hesitate before agreeing is something I'll never forget. You're right. I'll call Mark tomorrow about taking Jessica. I stood there in the darkness, my hand pressed against my mouth to keep from making a sound. The glass of water I'd wanted lay forgotten as I processed what I'd just heard. My own mother was trading me away because she didn't need my father's money anymore. Looking back now, I wonder if they ever knew I heard that conversation. Mom acted like she was doing me a favor when she told me I'd be moving in with Dad. You'll have more opportunities there, she'd said, as if she wasn't just getting rid of me because I'd become financially inconvenient. Dad welcomed me with open arms, no questions asked. He'd set up a room for me in his apartment, painted it my favorite color, and filled the bookshelf with all the series I loved reading. That first night at his place, he sat on the edge of my bed and said, I'm sorry things worked out this way, kiddo. But I want you to know something, you'll always have a home with me. Always. Those words became my anchor in the years that followed. While Mom busied herself with her new family, barely checking in except for obligatory holiday calls, Dad was there for everything, school plays, parent-teacher conferences, the time I got my heart broken by my first crush. He made sure I got into a good private school, encouraged my interests, and never made me feel like I was a burden. When college applications came around, he sat with me night after night, reviewing essays and helping me research schools. I still remember the day my acceptance letter from Princeton arrived. Dad's eyes were welling up as he read it. You did it, kiddo, he said, pulling me into a bear hug. I always knew you would. College was expensive, but Dad never complained. Your education is my priority, he'd say whenever I brought up the cost. Those 4 years flew by, and before I knew it, I was graduating with honors and had landed a job at one of the top consulting firms in the city. I rented a nice apartment downtown, not too far from Dad's place. We had dinner together every Sunday, just like we had since I was 12. He'd ask about my work, and I'd tell him about my latest projects. Sometimes we'd just sit in comfortable silence, watching old movies like we used to when I was in high school. Everything was perfect until it wasn't. The diagnosis came out of nowhere. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months, the doctors said. They were optimistic, Dad only made it 4. I was 28 when I lost him. The last few weeks were brutal. I took leave from work to be with him in the hospital. One night, near the end, he squeezed my hand and said, "You were the best thing in my life, Jessica. Never forget that." After he passed, I discovered he'd left me everything, his beautiful apartment in the city center and $700,000 in his accounts. I couldn't even think about the money. I just missed my dad. A month after the funeral, my phone rang. I almost dropped it when I saw Mom on the caller ID. Jessica? Her voice was hesitant. I heard about your father. I'm so sorry. I hadn't heard from her in years. Thanks, I managed to say. I know this might not be the best time, but Steve passed away too, recently, heart attack. She paused. I've been thinking about you a lot. Maybe it was grief making me vulnerable, or maybe I just wanted to believe people could change, but I found myself agreeing to meet her for coffee. One coffee turned into regular visits. I met Cindy properly for the first time since she was a baby. She was 21 now, bouncing between job interviews and seemingly directionless. Mom was working as a cashier at the local supermarket, a far cry from her days of not needing to work. I started visiting them several times a month. I told them about my travels, weekend trips to different states, my vacations in Europe. I always brought them gifts, designer clothes for Cindy, nice perfumes for Mom, little luxuries they couldn't afford themselves. It felt good, in a way, being able to share my success with them. It became a routine. I couldn't show up at Mom's place empty-handed. Even if I was just dropping by for a quick coffee, I'd feel guilty if I didn't bring something. The local mall became my regular stop before any visit. Cindy especially loved the clothes I brought back from Europe. Her eyes would light up every time I pulled out something from my suitcase. "Oh my God, Jess, is this really from that boutique in Paris?" she'd squeal, holding up whatever designer piece I'd brought her. At first, I enjoyed their reactions. Maybe I was trying to buy the affection I never got as a kid. I'd carefully pick out things I thought they'd like, a cashmere sweater for Mom, a leather handbag for Cindy. Then one day, I decided to ask what they actually wanted. "Oh, I couldn't possibly," Mom started, looking down at her coffee cup. "Maybe just some new towels from Target?" Cindy was equally hesitant at first. Maybe some drugstore makeup?" But something shifted after that. The requests started getting bigger, more frequent. Mom went from asking for towels to texting me entire shopping lists. "Hey honey," one text read. "When you're in Milan next month, could you pick up that Gucci bag we saw online? And Cindy really needs new winter clothes, Prada would be nice. Oh, and we're running low on groceries." I stared at my phone, my stomach turning. The lists kept getting longer, more demanding. It wasn't just luxury items anymore, they expected me to cover their basic expenses too. One evening, after receiving yet another lengthy list, I decided enough was enough. I drove to their house, determined to have a serious conversation. "Mom, Cindy, we need to talk about these requests," I said, sitting at their kitchen table. Mom shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "What do you mean, sweetie?" "The lists, the constant asking for things. It's getting out of hand." "Oh, come on," Cindy rolled her eyes. "It's not like you can't afford it. You're loaded." "That's not the point," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yes, I have money, but..." "But what?" Cindy interrupted. "You're just going to hoard it all while your family struggles? You've got that fancy apartment, you're always traveling, and you can't help out your poor family? You're rich. Your dad left her all that money, and you're being selfish." I felt my face getting hot. Selfish? That money came from the parent who actually wanted me. The one who didn't trade me away when I became inconvenient. The room went dead silent. "It's my money," I said finally, standing up. "And I'll decide how to spend it." "Real nice, Jess," Cindy spat. "Real nice way to treat your family." I walked out, slamming the door behind me. For the next month, my phone stayed silent, no calls, no texts, no lists of demands. Part of me was hurt, but another part felt relieved. After a month of silence, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Jessica, honey, could you come over? I need to talk to you about something important." There was something in her voice that made me worry. Despite our recent argument, I found myself driving to her house that afternoon. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table when I arrived, looking more subdued than usual. Cindy hovered nearby, her face uncharacteristically serious. "What's going on?" I asked, taking a seat. Mom reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "I've been to see a doctor, Jessica. It's my knee. They say I need surgery right away, a total knee replacement." My stomach dropped. "How serious is it?" "Very," she said, her voice trembling. "The doctor says if I don't get it done soon, I could end up disabled. I wouldn't be able to work anymore." I thought about Dad, how quickly things had gone downhill after his diagnosis. How helpless I'd felt watching him suffer. "The thing is," Mom continued, "the best specialist for this kind of surgery is in Arizona. They've got a spot open, but..." She paused, glancing at Cindy. "The whole thing, surgery, hospital stay, rehabilitation, it's going to cost $70,000. $70,000? I repeated. "I know it's a lot," Mom said quickly. But Cindy will come with me to help during recovery. The whole treatment and rehabilitation will take about a month. I sat there, memories of Dad's last months flooding back, the hospital corridors, the beeping machines, the helpless feeling of watching someone you love suffer. I couldn't let that happen again, not if I could prevent it. "I'll help," I heard myself say. "But I can't give you the whole amount at once. I can give you half now, $35,000, and the other half when I get the hospital bill." Mom's face darkened. "But I need all of it up front." "The hospital?" "Mom," I interrupted, "that's all I can do right now. I need to be smart about this." She started to protest, but Cindy put a hand on her shoulder. They exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. "Actually," Mom said, her tone shifting, "let me call the hospital. Maybe I can arrange to pay in 2 installments." She left the room with her phone, and I heard her voice drifting from the hallway. A few minutes later, she returned, looking relieved. "They said it would be fine," she announced. "We can pay half now and half after the surgery." The next few days were a blur of preparations. I transferred the first $35,000 to Mom's account. A week later, I helped them pack their bags and drove them to the airport. A few days after Mom and Cindy left, I was sitting in my home office reviewing some work documents when my phone buzzed. The name that popped up made me smile, Rachel Martinez, my best friend from elementary school. We'd known each other since we were 6, but after I moved in with Dad, we mostly kept in touch through social media. Recently, we'd started meeting up again for coffee and catching up on lost time. "Hey, Rach, what's up?" "Jess," there was something odd in her voice. "I need to ask you something weird. Did you know your mom and sister are in Europe?" I laughed, thinking it was some kind of joke. "What? No, they're in Arizona. Mom's having knee surgery." "Yeah, that's what I thought too, but..." Rachel paused. "My sister just showed me these photos that Cindy sent her. They're definitely not in Arizona." My phone pinged with incoming messages. With each new photo that loaded, I felt like I was being punched in the gut. There was Mom, looking perfectly healthy, posing in front of the Trevi Fountain. Cindy taking selfies outside designer boutiques in Rome. Mom's sister Angela and her daughter Emma lounging by a private pool at what looked like an expensive villa. Each photo was timestamped, yesterday's date clearly visible. "There's more," Rachel said hesitantly. "My sister said Cindy's been bragging about the whole thing. Apparently, your mom bought one-way tickets for everyone, herself, Cindy, your Aunt Angela, and your cousin Emma. They've rented some luxury villa for a month, and they're shopping at all these high-end stores and eating at fancy restaurants." I sat there, staring at a photo of my mother, my supposedly surgery-bound mother, sipping wine at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the Italian countryside. The $35,000 I'd given her for medical expenses was being spent on a European vacation. I spent the night tossing and turning, looking at those photos over and over. How could they do this? How could they lie so brazenly, taking advantage of my concern about Mom's health? They'd played me, using my memories of Dad's illness to manipulate me into giving them money. The next morning, I called Mom. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. "How did the surgery go?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, it went great. The doctor said everything went perfectly. I'm already starting rehabilitation." I gripped the edge of my desk, knuckles turning white. The casual way she lied made me feel sick. "That's wonderful," I said, my voice dripping with barely contained rage. "I'd love to talk to your doctor about the procedure. Could you put him on?" There was a slight pause. "Oh, he's very busy right now, sweetie. Besides, there's no need to bother him. Look, I need to go. They're calling me for physical therapy." The line went dead before I could respond. I sat there, staring at my phone, a wave of memories washing over me. Mom giving me away at 12 because she didn't need Dad's money anymore. Mom only reaching out after Dad died and left me his estate. Mom sending me shopping lists, expecting me to fund her lifestyle. And now this, the ultimate betrayal. I decided to play along with their charade, calling Mom every day to check on her recovery. Each time, she had a new excuse ready. The doctor's in surgery right now, honey. He's at a conference today. He's seeing other patients. He's off duty until tomorrow. It was like watching a bad play, where the actor keeps forgetting their lines and making up new ones on the spot. I started keeping a list of her excuses, partly out of anger, partly because I couldn't believe how ridiculous they were getting. Mom, I said during one call, trying to sound concerned, maybe we could do a video chat? I just want to see how you're doing, make sure you're comfortable in the hospital. There was a rustling sound on the other end, probably her covering the phone while she consulted with Cindy about what to say next. Oh, sweetie, I look terrible right now. All swollen and bruised. Plus, the hospital Wi-Fi is awful, keeps cutting out. I could hear Italian pop music playing faintly in the background. Really? I pressed. That's strange for a top medical facility. Well, you know how these things are, she said quickly. Listen, I need to go. Time for my physical therapy. The next time I called, I decided to try a different approach. Mom, just send me the hospital bill directly. I'll wire the remaining $35,000 to their account. No, she said it too quickly, too forcefully. Then, softening her tone, I mean, that's not necessary. Just send it to my account, and I'll handle everything with the hospital. They know me here now. After that conversation, I stopped calling. Let them sweat a little, I thought. Sure enough, a week later, Mom's number appeared on my phone. I watched it ring, imagining her growing panic as she realized the money might not be coming after all. Then came the text, Jessica, the hospital is demanding payment immediately. They're threatening to send the bill to collections. Please, we need the money right away. I took my time responding, waiting several hours before typing, no problem, just forward me the bill from the hospital, and I'll take care of it immediately. Silence followed. 3 days of it. I knew they were scrambling, trying to figure out what to do next. Then an email arrived in my inbox with the subject line urgent, hospital bill attached. I opened the attachment and almost laughed out loud. They hadn't even tried to make it look legitimate. The letterhead was blurry, clearly copied from some other document. The date was from 6 months ago. The hospital's address showed California instead of Arizona. And most tellingly, the payment details section listed Mom's personal bank account. I stared at this pathetic attempt at forgery, feeling a mix of amusement and deep sadness. I photographed a stack of $100 bills I'd withdrawn earlier that week, arranging them fan-like on my desk. Got your bill, I wrote back, attaching the photos. Sending you money. My finger hovered over the send button for just a moment before I pressed it. Game on, Mom, I thought. Let's see what story you come up with next. My phone rang less than an hour after I sent the photos. Mom's name flashed on the screen, and I took a deep breath before answering. Jessica, her voice was shrill, panicked. What's going on? Where's the rest of the money? We've been waiting. Drop the act, Mom, I cut her off, my voice ice cold. I know exactly where you are, and it's not in any hospital. What are you talking about? You're in Italy. At a villa. Shopping at designer stores and eating at expensive restaurants with Cindy, Aunt Angela, and Emma. The line went silent for a moment. I could almost hear her mind racing, trying to figure out how to spin this. How did you? She started. Cindy sent photos to Rachel's sister, who showed them to Rachel, who then sent them to me, I said. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? I've seen everything, the villa, the shopping trips, all of it. You used my father's death, used my grief and guilt about not being able to save him, to scam me out of money for a vacation? Another pause, then her voice changed. The fake concern disappeared, replaced by defensive anger. Fine. Yes, we're in Italy. I knew you'd never give us money for a vacation, but why shouldn't we get to travel too? You're always going somewhere, Paris, London, New York. Meanwhile, Cindy and I can barely afford groceries. That's not fair. Not fair? My voice was shaking now. Not fair is being 12 years old and hearing your mother trade you away because she didn't need your father's money anymore. Not fair is having that same mother show up 16 years later, not because she misses you, but because your father died and left you money. We can talk about all that later, she said quickly. Right now, we have a serious problem. We don't have money for tickets home, and we still need to pay the villa rental. Everyone needs to get back to work, we can't lose our jobs. Please, Jessica, we need that other $35,000. In that moment, I finally saw everything clearly. Nothing had changed. She was still the same woman who'd given me away when I became financially inconvenient. Only now she wanted me back, or rather, she wanted my money back. That's your problem, not mine, I said flatly. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up and immediately blocked her number. Then I went through every social media platform, every messaging app, every possible way they could reach me, and blocked them all, Mom, Cindy, Aunt Angela, everyone involved in this scheme. Sitting there in the silence of my apartment, the apartment Dad left me, I felt something shift inside me. The last lingering hope that my mother might actually care about me, might actually want a relationship with her daughter rather than her daughter's money, finally died. 2 weeks after I blocked everyone, my grandmother called. I almost didn't answer, but Grandma had always been different from Mom, more honest, more genuine. Jessica, honey, she said, her voice worried. Your mother called me. She says she needs $15,000 urgently. I don't have that kind of money, but I thought maybe you. Grandma, I said gently, let me tell you what really happened. I told her everything, the fake surgery, the Italian vacation, the scam to get my money. With each detail, I heard her sighs getting heavier. Oh, Jessica, she said finally. I'm so sorry. I had no idea Sarah would do something like this. Don't worry about them, Grandma, I assured her. They got themselves into this mess, they can get themselves out. As it turned out, I didn't have to wait long to find out how they managed. Rachel called me a few days later. Have you seen what Cindy's doing on social media? She asked. I hadn't, since I'd blocked them everywhere. Rachel proceeded to fill me in. She's running this fundraiser, claiming her wealthy sister abandoned them in Italy without money to get home. She's painting you as this heartless rich person who left her poor family stranded in a foreign country. I felt a familiar surge of anger, but this time it was mixed with something else, amusement. How's that working out for them? I asked. Well, Rachel said, they spent almost 2 weeks trying to raise the money. They had to sell all those designer clothes and bags they bought. Apparently, the villa owner was threatening to call the police because they couldn't pay the rent. And get this, they all nearly lost their jobs because they stayed way longer than their approved vacation time. I shook my head, thinking about how their grand European adventure had backfired spectacularly. A month later, Grandma called again with an update. They're finally back, she said. But Jessica, it's a mess. Your Aunt Angela isn't speaking to your mother anymore. Apparently, Sarah demanded she help pay for the trip after everything fell apart. And she and I had a terrible fight because I couldn't give her money for tickets home. She actually accused me of choosing you over her. I'm sorry you got dragged into this, Grandma. Don't be, sweetheart. Sometimes people need to face the consequences of their actions. After we hung up, I walked to the window of my apartment, Dad's apartment, and looked out over the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. On my desk, a stack of travel brochures lay waiting. I was planning my next trip, this time to Greece. The old me might have felt guilty about traveling while Mom and Cindy struggled. The old me might have invited them along, tried one more time to build the relationship I'd always wanted with them. But that me was gone, replaced by someone stronger, someone who finally understood that some relationships aren't worth saving. Dad's last words to me in the hospital echoed in my mind, You were the best thing in my life, Jessica. Never forget that. I hadn't forgotten. And I finally understood that I'd been lucky to have had one parent who truly loved me, who put me first, who taught me my own worth. Mom and Cindy could keep their schemes and manipulations. I had my father's love, his legacy, and most importantly, my self-respect. These days, my life is peaceful. I travel when I want, work hard at my job, and spend time with friends who value me for who I am, not what I can give them. Sometimes, I hear bits of news about Mom and Cindy through Grandma. They're still struggling, still playing victims, still looking for their next mark. But their drama doesn't touch me anymore.